Chapter 1, A mysterious night in a lively karaoke room, a group of classmates gathered to celebrate their high school graduation. "Anne, have a drink," a friend said to Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway gently shook her head, "I don't drink alcohol." Although they were all 18, she still felt that drinking wasn't good. "Then have some orange juice," a small hand offered her a glass of orange juice. Anne Hathaway turned to see that the one offering the juice was her half-sister, Amelia Hathaway. Amelia Hathaway was only a month younger than her, so they were in the same class. The reason her half-sister was just a month younger was because when her mother was pregnant, her father had an affair. Anne Hathaway took the glass of orange juice. The group raised their glasses, "Cheers to our high school graduation." Anne Hathaway drank the orange juice. She didn't notice the cunning gleam in Amelia Hathaway's eyes beside her. Today was Anne Hathaway's last good day. Soon after, Anne Hathaway began to feel unwell. Her head spun, and her body heated up. Anne Hathaway left the room, intending to go to the restroom to wash her face and clear her head. After washing her face several times, she looked up and saw Amelia Hathaway reflected in the mirror, standing behind her. "Hey sis, I just got a call from Daniel Sullivan. Your phone was off, so he called me. He said he's booked a room at the Imperial Hotel next door to surprise you. You just need to pick up the room key at the front desk." Amelia Hathaway finished speaking and pretended to cover her mouth in surprise. "Oh no, Daniel told me not to spoil the surprise, but I accidentally let it slip." Anne Hathaway took her phone out of her pocket and realized it was off, probably out of battery. She didn't know that Amelia had secretly turned it off when she wasn't looking. "Sis, I'm so jealous of you having such a great boyfriend like Daniel. You should go there quickly, don't keep him waiting," Amelia urged. Anne Hathaway didn't suspect anything, thinking Daniel Sullivan had planned a surprise to celebrate her graduation. A smile appeared on her lips. "All right, I'll head over now." With that, Anne left the restroom. Amelia stood there, watching Anne's figure disappear, her eyes suddenly turning sinister. She took out her phone and made a call. "The woman is on her way. Deal with her tonight." Hanging up, Amelia's lips curled into a wicked smile. "Let's see if Daniel still wants her after she's disgraced." A handsome man exuding a cold aura stood nearby. "William, let me help you," a seductive woman approached, clinging to him. She knew the drug was taking effect, and he desperately needed a woman now. She thought she had him in her grasp. But to her surprise, the man pushed her away. His eyes, red from the drug's influence, were filled with murderous intent, his presence chilling and menacing. The woman fell to the ground, disbelief in her eyes as she looked at him. She never expected he could still push her away under such circumstances. "If you don't want to die, get out." His entire being radiated a terrifying coldness, his handsome face like a frost-covered statue, sending shivers down one's spine. Normally, his presence commanded respect, but his fury was truly terrifying. She knew his nature, he could actually kill her. Reluctantly, the woman crawled up from the floor and left the room. The Imperial Hotel was just a 2-minute walk from the KTV. Anne Hathaway entered the hotel, gave her name at the front desk, and received the room key. Holding the key, she headed towards the elevator. With a ding, the elevator doors opened. As Anne was about to step in, she unexpectedly bumped into a woman coming out. Ah! Both of them fell, and the room key slipped from Anne's hand. "Watch where you're going," the woman snapped. "I'm sorry," Anne apologized, even though the woman had also bumped into her. With her conciliatory nature, she still apologized. The woman picked up her room key from the floor and turned to leave. Anne Hathaway sat down and picked up the room card in front of her. In the elevator, she glanced at the number on the card, 2020, and pressed the button for the 20th floor. As the elevator ascended, she felt increasingly unwell, her head dizzy, her body hot, her throat dry, as if yearning for something. What was happening to her? She hadn't drunk any alcohol, so why was she reacting this way? Anne Hathaway staggered to room 2020 and used the card to open the door. The room was dark, lit only by bright moonlight, and at first glance, it seemed empty. "Daniel?" she called softly. There was no response, so she called again, "Are you in there?" Suddenly, the bathroom door swung open with a clatter. A tall man emerged. In the dim light, Anne Hathaway couldn't make out his face before he pulled her into a tight embrace, a passionate kiss overtaking her. Under the man's dominant kiss, the effects of the drug in Anne Hathaway's body exploded immediately, her mind blank, gradually sinking into oblivion. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the large window. The man's biological clock made him wake up on time. He glanced at the woman beside him, her entire body covered by the blanket, revealing only a few strands of hair. A dark, unreadable expression flickered in his eyes. She was bold, daring to drug him. Yet, last night, her response was much better than he had imagined. For the first time, he didn't feel disgusted by a woman. It must have been the drug that made him lose his senses. The man got up and noticed the glaring red stain on the pristine white sheets. He frowned slightly. Without lingering, he dressed and left the room. When Anne Hathaway woke up, she felt as if a heavy truck had run over her, pain coursing through her body. She opened her eyes to an unfamiliar room. Fragments of memory flooded back, and she sprang out of bed. Last night, she seemed to have been with a man. And that man was not Daniel. Chapter 2, Let's Break Up. Anne Hathaway felt her mind go blank. Regaining her composure, she looked around, but the man was nowhere to be seen. She gathered her clothes from the floor and hurriedly left the hotel. "Amelia, is there still no news of Anne?" a gentle male voice, tinged with concern, asked. Amelia Hathaway looked at the tall, handsome, and elegantly poised man before her. He was Anne Hathaway's boyfriend of 2 years, the man she admired, Daniel Sullivan. Seeing him worry about Anne Hathaway, Amelia felt a pang of jealousy. Amelia Hathaway gently shook her head. "There's still no news of my sister. I'm sorry, it's all my fault for not paying attention and letting her go alone." Her face already delicate, her large eyes misted over, looking pitiful. However, as she lowered her gaze, her eyes turned sinister. She had clearly given her sister the drug yesterday and arranged for some strong men in the room, but they told her that her sister never showed up. Daniel Sullivan patted Amelia Hathaway's shoulder, comforting her. "It's not your fault either. Daniel, don't worry too much. Maybe she just stayed over at a friend's house." Mr. Hathaway spoke up. Next to him, a woman dressed like a wealthy lady with a mocking tone said, "Who knows if she went out to have fun." This woman was Luna Moore, Mr. Hathaway's current wife, the biological mother of Amelia Hathaway, and the stepmother of Anne Hathaway. Luna Moore's words made Daniel Sullivan frown. "Aunt, don't speak about Anne like that. She's not that kind of person." The maid approached to open the door. "Miss, you are back." Anne Hathaway entered the living room, seeing everyone in the Hathaway family present, including Daniel Sullivan. Seeing Daniel Sullivan, Anne Hathaway's heart suddenly ached. "Anne, you're finally back. Where did you go last night?" "I heard you didn't come home all night, so I rushed over this morning," Daniel Sullivan asked with concern. However, his words immediately extinguished the faint hope in Anne Hathaway's heart. The man from last night was indeed not him. I. Anne Hathaway couldn't explain to him what had happened the previous night. At this moment, Amelia Hathaway keenly noticed a faint red mark on Anne Hathaway's shoulder, her eyes flashing with a cold light. She immediately went to Anne Hathaway's side. "Sister, where did you go last night?" "I returned to the room and didn't see you. I was worried sick." Amelia Hathaway's words made Anne Hathaway widen her eyes in surprise, looking at her. "Oh, sis, what's wrong with your shoulder? Did someone bully you?" Amelia Hathaway asked, reaching out to pull down Anne Hathaway's shirt, exposing one shoulder. Anne Hathaway reacted, but before she could stop it, one side of her shoulder was already exposed by Amelia. On her smooth white skin, her round shoulder and alluring collarbone were covered with ambiguous red marks. The most shocked person was none other than Daniel Sullivan. Daniel Sullivan stared at Anne Hathaway in disbelief, and, "What is this about?" He couldn't help but understand what those marks represented. Anne Hathaway's tears immediately fell. I. Beside her, Luna Moore didn't hesitate to stir up trouble, and, "You already have Daniel, yet you went out messing around, that's really not nice." Anne Hathaway quickly shook her head, defending herself, "It's not like that, it's not like that." Thinking of something, Anne Hathaway turned to look at Amelia Hathaway and then at Daniel Sullivan with a pained expression. "It was Amelia who told me that Daniel had a surprise for me and asked me to go to the hotel, so I went." "Sis, what are you saying? I never told you that, you can't falsely accuse me." Amelia Hathaway immediately teared up, acting wronged. Anne Hathaway realized she had no proof to show Amelia had lied to her. Daniel Sullivan grabbed Anne Hathaway's shoulders, looking straight at her, and, "Tell me, last night was just an accident, you didn't really betray me, right?" Anne Hathaway also looked directly into Daniel Sullivan's face. "Last night was just an accident, I didn't think it would happen, Daniel, I'm sorry, I'm no longer pure, I don't deserve you anymore, let's break up." Hearing Anne Hathaway say the words to break up with Daniel Sullivan, Amelia Hathaway felt a surge of victorious joy. But the next moment, Daniel Sullivan tightly embraced Anne Hathaway. "No, I won't break up with you, as long as you didn't intentionally betray me, I'll consider last night an accident, and we won't mention it, as if it never happened." Unexpectedly, even after such an incident, Daniel Sullivan was still willing to accept Anne Hathaway. Amelia Hathaway clenched her fists beside her, a wave of intense jealousy rising within. 3 months later during a meal, when she smelled the braised meat on the table, Anne Hathaway felt a wave of nausea and immediately ran to the trash can to dry heave, but couldn't bring anything up. Luna Moore's cold laughter echoed, "Could it be you're pregnant with some guy's child?" Luna Moore's words hit Anne Hathaway like a thunderbolt, leaving her stunned. That night, she indeed forgot to take her birth control pills. "Doctor, what are the results?" Anne Hathaway anxiously asked the doctor. She had secretly gone to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor reviewed Anne Hathaway's test report. "Girl, you have been pregnant for 3 months. Anne Hathaway's whole body stiffened, her mind seemed to explode, chaotic. She was indeed pregnant. After what happened, Daniel was still willing to be with her. How could she be pregnant with someone else's child? "Doctor, I want to terminate this pregnancy." "Girl, according to your test report, your uterine wall is congenitally very thin. If you terminate this pregnancy, you may not be able to have children in the future. Moreover, this is a life inside you, have you thought it through?" The doctor's words were like a strong blow, shattering Anne Hathaway's last hope. She didn't know how she left the doctor's office. However, in the hallway, she saw a figure she didn't want to meet. Daniel Sullivan approached with a worried expression. "Anne, I heard you weren't feeling well, so I came to the hospital. What's bothering you?" Daniel Sullivan's warm voice carried concern. But his concern only added to Anne Hathaway's pain. She looked up at Daniel Sullivan, trying to hold back her tears. "Daniel, let's break up." Anne Hathaway's words were like a bolt from the blue, causing Daniel Sullivan's mind to explode. "Anne, what are you saying?" "I'm pregnant." The 4 words echoed, and Daniel Sullivan, who had been excited, suddenly fell silent and stood still. Daniel Sullivan regained his senses, looking at her in disbelief, his voice slightly trembling. "Is the child from that night?" Anne Hathaway struggled to reply with a soft yes. Daniel Sullivan, agitated, grabbed her shoulders. "Get an abortion. Get an abortion, and I'll pretend nothing happened. We can still be okay." Daniel Sullivan's words made Anne Hathaway's heart ache even more. In this situation, Daniel still didn't want to give up on her, but she had no other choice. The doctor's words earlier, if she had an abortion, she wouldn't be able to conceive again. The Hathaway family certainly wouldn't agree to them being together. She couldn't pretend nothing had happened to stay with Daniel. I can't have an abortion, so Daniel, let's break up. As Anne Hathaway finished speaking, she felt the weight on her shoulders suddenly disappear. Looking up, she saw Daniel Sullivan's shattered expression, and her heart ached deeply. Daniel Sullivan snapped out of his shock, his once warm face now showing a numb expression. If that's your decision, then so be it. With that, Daniel Sullivan turned and walked away. Anne Hathaway stood there, watching his figure disappear, feeling a sharp pain in her heart as tears rolled down her cheeks. In a hidden corner, a figure quickly ducked away, watching Daniel Sullivan's determined departure. Amelia Hathaway smiled smugly. She had been keeping an eye on Anne Hathaway's every move. It was she who told Daniel Sullivan that Anne Hathaway was unwell and needed a checkup. She even bribed the doctor to make him say those words. She knew that, with Anne Hathaway's personality, she would never terminate the baby and would likely suggest breaking up with Daniel. Since childhood, Anne had been the young lady of the Hathaway family, while she was treated as an outsider. Anne was more beautiful, smarter, and more beloved by family and friends. Most importantly, Anne had taken Daniel, the man she liked. Anne Hathaway, I will drag you into hell step by step. The title of the Hathaway family's young lady is mine, and so is Daniel. 4 months later, in the delivery room. Ah! A painful scream was followed by the cries of a baby. Congratulations, it's a little prince. Anne Hathaway hadn't even had a chance to see the baby before she fainted. When she regained consciousness, she was already in a hospital room. Slowly opening her eyes, the white ceiling came into view. Sister, you're finally awake, a familiar voice said. Weakly propping herself up, and saw Amelia Hathaway in the room. Her face pale, her brows furrowed, and her tone cold, she asked, why are you here? After Anne became pregnant, Mr. Hathaway, enraged and influenced by Luna Moore's instigation, had kicked her out of the Hathaway family. She thought maybe her father had wanted to expel her for a long time but hadn't found the right excuse until now. I heard you gave birth today. As your sister, of course, I had to come visit you, Amelia said, feigning concern. She had an innately innocent and kind appearance, and her acting skills had deceived everyone. That's why, when Anne tried to explain to her father that Amelia had set her up that night, no one believed her. Her father had even slapped her, accusing her of being shameless for carrying a bastard child and falsely blaming her younger sister. Amelia's reminder brought Anne back to the present, her child wasn't with her. Where's my baby? Where's my baby? She cried out. Hearing the commotion, the doctor entered the room. Anne anxiously asked, Doctor, where's my baby? She still remembered the doctor saying it was a boy before she passed out. The doctor hesitated before replying, Miss, your baby was born prematurely and, unfortunately, didn't survive. The doctor's words struck Anne like a bolt of lightning, leaving her mind blank. When she came to, she stared in disbelief, shaking her head and mumbling, No, no, it can't be. Overcome with emotion, Anne got out of bed despite the pain from childbirth. I want to see my baby. I want to see my baby, she cried. She didn't even know how she ended up following the doctor to the morgue. When she saw the small figure covered by a white sheet, with a bracelet on its tiny, cold wrist that read, Mother, Anne Hathaway, she couldn't hold back her tears. She didn't want to believe it, didn't want to accept this reality. She hadn't even seen her child alive before he left this world. Ah! And screamed toward the heavens. As if trying to escape, she ran out in a frenzy. Just then, a car came speeding toward her, and before she could react, she was hit. Help! Someone's been hit. And collapsed to the ground, her blurry eyes gazing at the sky. My baby, Mommy's coming to you, she whispered. In a hidden corner of the hospital, the doctor approached Amelia Hathaway. Miss Hathaway, I've completed what you asked. Here's the promised 1 million. Amelia smiled coldly, handed the check to the doctor, and turned to leave. The doctor slipped the $1 million check into his pocket and quickly left, heading towards his office. Hey, what's going on at the VIP building? I heard all the surveillance cameras over there have been turned off. What else could it be? Surely some bigwig is there. On his way, the doctor overheard the nurse's conversation, a shadow flickering in his eyes. The doctor returned to his office, opened the wardrobe, and took out a baby wrapped in a blanket. Holding the baby, he discreetly left the office. At the back door of the VIP building of Hospital No. 1, a long black Lincoln car pulled up. The driver got out and opened the door. A tall man stepped out, dressed in a black suit, his face perfectly sculpted, exuding an aura of nobility that commanded respect. With a pensive expression, the man headed towards the door. Hope, you said William wouldn't come, right? The old man lying on the hospital bed looked at the beautiful woman beside him. Don't worry, Dad, William is so filial, he will definitely come. At that moment, there was a noise at the door, and the woman quickly said, Dad, lie down quickly. With a click, the door opened, and the man walked in. William, you finally came. Your grandfather almost. The woman said, pretending to wipe away tears. Chapter 4, I am his stepmother. The handsome man's face showed little emotion. It's good that nothing happened. The old man on the hospital bed opened his eyes and sat up, looking at the man reproachfully. I think you're hoping something happens to your grandfather. Look at you, you're 26 and still don't have a girlfriend. Rumors are spreading that you're gay. How can I maintain the Carter family's reputation? When will you give me a great-grandchild? The man in front of him was his grandson, William Carter, the current CEO of the Carters Group. The man whom all the young ladies in City A wanted to marry, yet in 26 years, he had never had a girlfriend. Seeing Mr. Carter's lively spirit, William Carter knew he had been tricked again. His face remained calm. Grandfather, perhaps you should hope for a great-grandchild to fall from the sky, that might be more likely. With that, the tall figure turned to leave. At the door, he reconsidered something, turned back to look at his grandfather, and said, the rumors outside might just be true. Then he opened the door and walked out of the hospital room, leaving the two people bewildered. The doctor, holding the baby, intended to leave the VIP area through the back door. As he passed the back door, he saw a luxury car parked. Thinking about something, the doctor looked around to ensure no one was watching, approached the car, and placed the baby on the hood. I took the money, but I can't bring myself to harm you. I hope a wealthy family will adopt you. Consider this my redemption. With that, worried about being discovered, the doctor quickly left. The man stepped out of the hospital room, and the driver waited at the door to accompany him to the elevator. Worried it might be something dangerous, he hurried over to check. When he saw it was a newborn baby, the driver was astonished, his eyes wide in disbelief. Young master, it's a baby. Hearing this, the man also approached the car. Seeing the baby on the hood, his face remained calm. Young master, this baby. The driver awkwardly looked at the man. William Carter looked at the baby before him, small like a little newborn monkey. He never liked children, and this was the first time he had seen a newborn. At that moment, the baby seemed to sense the gaze, its tightly closed eyes suddenly opened, revealing large round eyes. The tiny mouth smiled at William Carter. In that instant, something touched his soul, stirring a strange feeling deep inside him. Yes. The driver quickly picked up the baby and returned to the VIP area. 4 years later. Here is your certificate. In the future, become an exemplary teacher and nurture the flowers of our nation. Thank you, teacher. Anne Hathaway received the preschool teaching certificate from her teacher, a joyful smile on her lips. That year, due to certain reasons, she couldn't continue her university studies. She worked for a year to save up for tuition fees, then self-studied to get into college, focusing on early childhood education. Now with the certificate, she could start looking for a formal job. Anne Hathaway's childhood dream was to become a teacher. However, her academic performance wasn't outstanding, so teaching middle or high school might not be ideal for the students. Therefore, she was quite satisfied with becoming a preschool teacher. Leaving the school, seeing that it was still early, Anne Hathaway decided to take a stroll around town before heading home. After walking for a while, she happened to pass by a kindergarten. The kindergarten is called Global Kids Academy, the most renowned preschool in City A, where the children of wealthy or noble families attend. It's currently dismissal time, and there are quite a few luxury cars gathered in front of the kindergarten, resembling a car exhibition. Anne Hathaway couldn't help but be amazed. The best private elite kindergarten in City A truly lives up to its reputation. It's said that the preschool teachers here earn a monthly income comparable to that of university professors. However, with her abilities, without connections, she wouldn't be able to get a teaching position at such a kindergarten. As Anne Hathaway walked past the gate, she noticed a group of children surrounding a boy. Her instinctive responsibility as a teacher made Anne Hathaway stop to watch. The boy being surrounded wore the same uniform as the other children, yet he exuded a distinct air of nobility. His delicate little face was like a finely sculpted dumpling, so young yet clearly destined to be a handsome man in the future. "Hey, Benjamin Carter, don't you have a mom?" a boy with a fierce expression spoke up. "I do have a mom," the surrounded boy retorted defiantly. "He's lying. I heard he doesn't have a mom." "No mom and still lying. Let's not play with him anymore." The head of the bullied boy lowered further, and tears seemed about to fall from his large, dark eyes. The scene caught Anne Hathaway's eye, making her heart soften. These children, so young yet already learning to bully others, were outrageous. Attending such a good school, weren't the teachers educating them properly? Anne Hathaway couldn't stand it any longer and went straight to the child, picking him up. Benjamin Carter was surprised to be lifted unexpectedly, warily tilting his small head. Seeing the beautiful face before him, he was stunned. "I am his mother," Anne Hathaway said to the children. Hearing Anne Hathaway's words, Benjamin Carter's eyes widened, his large eyes like black grapes seemed to sparkle. The boy leading the group bullying Benjamin Carter said in disbelief, "I don't believe it. He clearly doesn't have a mother." "Yes. And you're so young. How can you be his mother?" Anne Hathaway's mouth twitched. How could such young children be so perceptive? Maintaining a stern expression, Anne Hathaway said loudly, "Can't I be his stepmother?" Sensing a familiar presence, Benjamin Carter, held in Anne Hathaway's arms, turned and called out in a childish voice, "Daddy! Daddy!" Anne Hathaway stiffened and turned around, and upon seeing the man approaching, she stood still in shock. The man in front of her, dressed in a black suit, had impeccable handsome features and exuded a noble, regal aura. More importantly, he was the grown-up version of the boy. And at this moment, his cold gaze was fixed on her. Pretending to be a stepmother and getting caught, could anything be more embarrassing? Anne Hathaway felt there probably wasn't. Chapter 5, Benjamin Carter's biological mother. Well, Anne Hathaway opened her mouth, not knowing how to explain. Explaining now would only expose her, wouldn't it? And this child would certainly be mocked even more by his friends later. Small soft hands wrapped around Anne Hathaway's neck. "Daddy, Mommy, let's go home." The man, with deep and profound eyes, glanced briefly at the obedient little boy being held by a woman, then turned his gaze to the woman standing before him. In a warm, magnetic voice, he said, "Get in the car." After speaking, he turned and walked toward the luxurious car parked not far away. The man did not expose anything midway, allowing Anne Hathaway to breathe a sigh of relief. Her heart was still tense. Benjamin Carter noticed the woman still standing there, dazed and unmoving, and gently tugged her. "Mom, let's go." "Ah, yes," Anne Hathaway snapped back to reality, hurriedly carrying the child as she followed the man and got into the car. Seeing the man enter the car alone, Assistant Felix Reed couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Young master, where is the young master?" However, before he could finish his sentence, he saw a beautiful young woman carrying the little master and getting into the car as well. What is going on here? The little master was being carried by a strange woman. It must be noted that the little master, inheriting the young master's traits, not only had striking looks and exceptional intelligence but also an aversion to being touched by women. Apart from the madam, this was the first time the little master had been touched by another woman, and he didn't seem unwilling. On the contrary, he appeared quite happy. "Drive," the man ordered in a low, commanding voice. Felix Reed snapped out of his daze and quickly started the car, driving away. Inside the vehicle, the atmosphere was somewhat peculiar. Anne Hathaway stole a glance at the man beside her and mustered up her courage to explain, "About what happened earlier, I want to clarify. I was just passing by when I saw some kids bullying the boy, saying he didn't have a mother. That's why I stepped in." Recalling how she had loudly declared, "I'm his stepmother, isn't that okay?" Which the man had undoubtedly heard, and Hathaway wished she could find a hole to crawl into. Her explanation only made the man's expression darker, and the cold aura emanating from him made the air in the car stifling. Sensing his displeasure, Anne Hathaway grew anxious, her heart pounding as she hastily added, "Please don't misunderstand, I absolutely didn't mean anything else. He won't think I'm intentionally trying to get close to him, will he? Anyway, judging by his demeanor and car, it's clear he's wealthy and has status. This child doesn't have a mother, it's unclear if she passed away or if they're divorced. A man like that, even if he has a child, surely many women would pursue him, right? But I'm really not one of them." She just spoke up because she saw something unfair. The man glanced, his gaze falling on the boy still being held by the woman, with no intention of leaving. Hearing his father call his full name, Benjamin Carter couldn't help but shiver. Perhaps the childhood fear for every child is when their parents call them by their full name, it can't get any scarier. Is she right? Benjamin Carter nodded gently. Hearing this, William Carter's eyes turned cold. "Why didn't you tell me before? If it weren't for meeting this woman today, he wouldn't even know his son was being bullied at school. What good would it do? I don't have a mother." Benjamin Carter lowered his head, his childish voice soft and filled with grievance, truly pitiful, melting one's heart. Anne Hathaway's heart softened at Benjamin Carter's words. "How could you find such an understanding child?" Benjamin Carter's words rendered William Carter silent. Because, as he said, even if he spoke up, it wouldn't change anything, he truly doesn't have a mother. As for who Benjamin Carter's biological mother is, even William Carter doesn't know. He doesn't even know where this child came from. Back then, when he found Benjamin Carter and took him to the hospital, the doctor soon informed him that the premature baby was severely anemic and needed an urgent blood transfusion. But the child's blood type was the rare RN negative, making it difficult to find a matching donor. Coincidentally, he also had this rare blood type, so he donated blood to the child. Unexpectedly, after the blood test, he received an unbelievable answer: the child was indeed his son. Later, he investigated through surveillance cameras, but at that time, because the entire surveillance system of the VIP building and surrounding area was down, he couldn't find out who left the child there. Over the years, the child's biological mother has never appeared. The car fell silent, and the atmosphere was somewhat peculiar. Ahem, and Hathaway coughed lightly, breaking the silence. "Well, it's clear now. Can I get off the car?" The car had already left the kindergarten a bit, and getting off now wouldn't be noticed by anyone. "Sure." Felix Reed stopped the car by the roadside at the next intersection. "I'll get off here." And Hathaway nodded gently, signaling her intention to leave, but she realized the child was still holding on to her, not wanting to let go. "Auntie, are you leaving already?" Turning back, Anne Hathaway met a pair of big, sparkling eyes looking at her, resembling a puppy that had been abandoned. Her heart melted instantly. "I have to go home." Benjamin Carter, with a pitiful expression, was reluctant to let her go. Beside them, a commanding voice of a man sounded, "Benjamin, don't make it hard for Auntie." After the man spoke, Benjamin Carter, albeit unhappily, released his grip from Anne Hathaway's neck and climbed down from her. "I'll be off then, sorry for the trouble." Benjamin Carter pouted, looking as if he might cry, "Goodbye, Auntie." With that, Anne Hathaway quickly opened the car door and got out. She feared that if she stayed any longer, she wouldn't be able to resist taking the child with her. Besides, even though they said goodbye, how would they ever meet again? She and they belonged to different worlds. If it hadn't been for a mistake, they would never have met in this lifetime. Benjamin Carter lay against the window, watching Anne Hathaway's figure disappear from view, then sat back, lowering his head in sadness. Felix Reed cooperatively waited for Benjamin Carter to settle before starting the car again. William Carter's gaze fell beside him, observing Benjamin Carter's small, sad face, like a wilted eggplant. There was a deep, swirling emotion in his eyes. It was the first time he had seen the boy take such a liking to a woman, even willing to be held by her. Chapter 6, Just become a stepmother. Benjamin Carter was like him, not only in appearance but also in his aversion to the opposite sex. At home, other than his mother, who could hold Benjamin Carter, he would avoid any touch from the maids. Yet, just now, he leaned into that woman's embrace, unwilling to part even when she wanted to leave. "Benjamin, if something like this happens again, remember to tell your father. Moreover, we Carters can't let others bully us, understand?" William Carter's face remained cold, his tone somewhat stern. But in truth, he felt heartbroken that his son was being bullied by other children because he didn't have a mother. Benjamin Carter still kept his head down, whispering, "But what they said wasn't wrong, I really don't have a mother." Benjamin Carter's retort left William Carter speechless. "Everyone has a mother, otherwise how would you be born?" "Then where is my mother?" Benjamin Carter looked up at him. Actually, he didn't know where the boy's mother was, more precisely, he didn't even know who she was. Seeing William Carter's reaction, Benjamin Carter looked down, disappointed. "So, I really don't have a mother." William Carter was about to offer comfort when Benjamin suddenly seemed to gain strength. He sat up straight, his large, bright eyes looking at him. "Can the lady from earlier be my mother?" The boy really liked the lady from before, her embrace was warm, she smelled nice, and when she held him, he felt wrapped in happiness. "No," William Carter refused without hesitation. Upon receiving the man's rejection, the bright eyes that had shone like stars suddenly dimmed, becoming gloomy. Benjamin Carter pouted, his face full of displeasure. "Why?" "No reason." The answer was brief. To be precise, the reason was too complicated to explain to him. He disliked interactions with the opposite sex, even being in the same space with them made him uncomfortable. The only time in his life he had intimate contact with a woman was 5 years ago when he was drugged and lost his senses. Yet, just now, when that woman was in the car, he didn't feel uncomfortable as usual. Perhaps it was just because Benjamin Carter was in her arms. Benjamin Carter understood William Carter's character, feeling wronged but said nothing more. Anne Hathaway returned to her current rented home, located in a village within City A, far from the center. The reason for renting here was, of course, the cheap rent. After being kicked out by the Hathaway family, they no longer provided her with any living expenses, so she had to work to support herself. Nearing home, Anne Hathaway saw a beautiful figure standing in front of her door. From afar, the woman had chestnut curly hair, wore a tight black dress that accentuated her curves, and had on slender 10-centimeter high heels. "Piglet!" Anne Hathaway called out, carrying a bag of groceries she had just bought from the market, quickly running to the woman. "Hey! If you keep calling me that, I'll cut off our friendship." The woman glared, displeased. Anne Hathaway stuck out her tongue, coaxing, "Lady Victoria, I'm sorry, please forgive me this time. Look, I bought ingredients to make your favorite hot pot." Anne Hathaway said, raising the plastic bag in her hand, swaying it as if showing off a treasure. This woman is Anne Hathaway's close friend, named Victoria Peterson, whom Anne met by chance while working part-time at a restaurant. If you asked Victoria Peterson what she hated the most, it would be nothing other than the animated film, Peppa Pig. Since this cartoon became famous, her nickname turned into Little Pig and Socialite. Victoria Peterson glanced at the ingredients in Anne Hathaway's hand, swallowed, but still maintained a cool demeanor. "Considering your sincerity, I'll forgive you. Thank you so much." The two of them entered the rented apartment together. The apartment wasn't large, but Anne Hathaway kept it very tidy, making it comfortable for one person to live in. As the bottom of the pot heated up, the red oil bubbled, and they began to add the ingredients inside. "Aren't you supposed to pick up your preschool teaching certificate today? Let me see it." Victoria Peterson curiously blinked her big eyes. Anne Hathaway took the preschool teaching certificate out of her bag and handed it to her. Victoria Peterson held Anne Hathaway's certificate, incredulously saying, "I can't believe you actually became a preschool teacher. I'll take a minute of silence for the future flowers of our nation that you'll ruin." Anne Hathaway pouted in dissatisfaction, correcting her, Hey. It's not ruining. It's nurturing. It's caring. It's cultivating." Victoria Peterson returned the certificate, complaining, "Didn't you leave at 2 o'clock? What mischief did you get into that it took you so long to come back? I've been waiting at your door for half an hour, you know." Mentioning the reason for being late, Anne Hathaway shyly lowered her head. Seeing this, Victoria Peterson knew something was up, batting her smoky eye makeup with curiosity. "Did you really do something bad?" Anne Hathaway recounted what happened at the kindergarten today to Victoria Peterson. Ahahaha. Afterwards, she was mercilessly teased. Watching her best friend in front of her, clutching her stomach and laughing until tears rolled down, Anne Hathaway could only remain silent, unable to speak. "Stop laughing, your eye makeup is smudged." Victoria Peterson waved her hand, still laughing. "It's okay, I don't have to work tonight." "Oh right, what are you planning to do tomorrow?" Victoria Peterson finally calmed down. "What else? I'll look for a job. I think you should stop job hunting and just become someone's stepmother." Ha 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 ha. Anne Hathaway silently picked up her food, ignoring her. The next day, Anne Hathaway went out to look for a job. "Sorry, our kindergarten is not hiring anymore. Sorry, given your current situation, you can't work at our kindergarten. The holidays are coming soon, you should wait until the next semester." Anne Hathaway spent the whole day running around several kindergartens but still couldn't find a job. Seeing it was time for school to end, she had to head back. Green bean soup, refreshing green bean soup here. And saw an old lady selling green bean soup by the roadside, noticed her white hair, and couldn't help but feel sorry for her. Feeling thirsty, she decided to buy a cup of green bean soup. After paying, she was about to leave when she saw some young thugs aggressively approaching the old lady. "This is our turf, selling here means you have to pay us protection money." "I really don't have any money," the old lady said, her voice choked with emotion. "No money? Then leave your stuff here," the thug said, making a move to seize the old lady's stall. "No, please. I still have to earn money to support my grandchild." The old lady tried to protect her stall but was pushed to the ground by the thug. Anne Hathaway couldn't just sit by and watch. "Hey! You're going too far!" Anne Hathaway shouted, rushing to the old lady's side, helping her up and asking if she was okay. "Ma'am, are you all right?" The old lady, with tears on her face, shook her head. "This is my turf. Don't meddle in others' affairs. Otherwise, we won't let you off," the thug threatened in a low voice. The bystanders nearby watched, but no one dared to step forward to help. In today's society, few are willing to invite trouble. Especially the nearby vendors, they looked at Anne Hathaway with sympathetic eyes, knowing how arrogant these thugs could be, and the young girl might be in trouble. Facing the thugs, it was impossible not to be scared, but she knew if she didn't help, the old lady's stall would be taken. Her sense of justice overcame her fear, and Anne Hathaway stood tall. "I will intervene. You're breaking the law. I can call the police." The thugs laughed as if hearing a joke. "Go ahead, call the police. See if they come." Seeing the thugs' arrogant demeanor, acting so brazenly in broad daylight, it was clear they had connections with the nearby police. Benjamin Carter left the school gate, noticed a familiar car, and walked over. Felix Reed opened the car door, and there was a man with a strong presence sitting in the back seat. Today is Friday, and by tradition, they must return to the main house. Usually, after school, a driver would pick him up, but yesterday William Carter showed up because the driver had a minor issue, and he conveniently picked him up on his way home from work. Once in the car, the man's cold voice instructed, "To the main house." Since they were heading to the main house, it wasn't the usual route they took daily. On the way back, it was rush hour on Friday, and the car was stuck in traffic. Benjamin Carter, feeling bored, glanced out the window and suddenly saw a familiar figure not far away. His previously gloomy eyes lit up instantly. Pressing his small hands against the window, he exclaimed excitedly, "It's her." Hearing this, William Carter, who was working on his laptop on his lap, also looked up. "I want to go see her," Benjamin Carter said, and immediately opened the car door and ran out. Seeing this, William Carter quickly put down his laptop and followed him. Luckily, the traffic was at a standstill, or else. "Little sister, trying to be a good Samaritan like lay phone. I think you're pretty. How about spending a night with us, and we'll let you go?" The leader of the thugs leered at Anne Hathaway. His gaze turned fierce. "If you don't accept our offer, don't blame us for forcing you. Guys, grab the stuff." With that, a few thugs rushed to snatch the old lady's stall. The old lady cried and pleaded, protecting her stall, "You can't take it away, it's the only source of income for me and my grandson." Anne Hathaway also helped the old lady protect the stall, preventing them from taking it. "Get lost." One thug forcefully shoved Anne Hathaway. She fell hard to the ground. It was summer, and she was only wearing a short-sleeved shirt, so her elbows and knees got scraped. Unexpectedly, just as they approached, they saw her being pushed to the ground. Benjamin Carter's cheerful face instantly turned somber. He rushed to Anne Hathaway's side. "Auntie. Are you okay?" Anne Hathaway, in pain, was struggling to get up when she saw a soft white bundle running towards her. Surprised to see the boy here, Anne Hathaway widened her eyes. The boy, like a hero saving a damsel in distress, spread his chubby arms like lotus roots in front of Anne Hathaway. "You can't bully my aunt. Ha ha ha, where did this little brat come from, trying to play hero at such a young age? Go play somewhere else, kid." The thugs laughed mockingly. "Kid, go away," Anne Hathaway urged. These thugs bullied even the elderly, they might not spare a young child like him either. "Little kid?" Hearing this, Benjamin Carter raised an eyebrow. Although he wasn't very pleased with this nickname, since his aunt gave it to him, he liked it. "Auntie, don't worry, I will protect you," Benjamin Carter's soft voice assured, as his small hands patted his chest. She suddenly felt a strange sense of being charmed. This was the first time a man had said he would protect her. Well, if the little boy could be considered a man. Ha 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 ha, the thugs laughed loudly at Benjamin Carter's innocent words. Feeling mocked made Benjamin Carter extremely uncomfortable. "Kid, go play somewhere else." One of them pushed Benjamin Carter, and since he was only a 4-year-old child, he couldn't resist the strength of an adult. Luckily, Anne Hathaway reacted in time, rushing to embrace him, preventing Benjamin Carter from falling. However, in her rush, Anne Hathaway's knee hit the concrete hard. "Dad!" Seeing William Carter approaching, Benjamin Carter's eyes widened with joy. With Benjamin Carter's call of "Dad," the thugs felt a chilling coldness from behind, making their spines shiver. As William Carter arrived, he saw Benjamin Carter being pushed back a step by them. Fortunately, under Anne Hathaway's protection, Benjamin didn't actually fall. However, this was enough to ignite William Carter's anger. The thugs collectively turned around to see the man who appeared behind them. The man, dressed in an expensive black suit, stood tall enough to look down on them. At that moment, his handsome face was cold, and his dark eyes carried a menacing aura. His gaze alone was enough to intimidate. "Which hand?" The man's tone was unchanged but carried heavy pressure. "Which hand pushed my son?" "I did, so what? I warn you not to meddle in others' business." The lead thug couldn't finish his sentence before the man swiftly advanced, grabbing his hand and twisting it forcefully. "Ah!" A painful scream echoed. The thug immediately grimaced in agony. Then, the man executed a shoulder throw. Boom! A loud noise sounded as the thug was slammed to the ground. Chapter 8, It feels like my worldview has changed. The pathetic state of the thug being slammed to the ground made Anne Hathaway feel as if the entire earth shook with him. In the thug's line of sight, expensive, shiny black leather shoes stomped heavily on his hand. "Spare me, hero. I know I was wrong," the thug pleaded for mercy. However, the man continued to press his heel down hard on the thug's already broken wrist. "Ah!" The thug's scream tore through the sky, and then he passed out. The man withdrew his foot, his voice cold as if echoing from the depths of hell, "Get lost." The remaining thugs stood frozen in place, quickly dragging their leader away. "Dad, you were so cool just now." Benjamin Carter couldn't help but praise. Even though the trouble had been resolved, the man's face still showed displeasure. Being called by his full name by his father, Benjamin Carter shivered slightly. "Do you know how dangerous your actions were just now? If I hadn't arrived in time, who knows what those heartless thugs would have done to you?" Benjamin Carter looked down, feeling wronged. "I saw the lady being bullied, so I know I was wrong." Seeing Benjamin Carter like this, William Carter pressed his lips together, his gaze falling on Anne Hathaway, who was sitting on the ground, still in a protective stance over Benjamin Carter. Anne Hathaway gently shook her head, trying to stand up. At that moment, an elderly woman approached them, tears streaming down her face, and said, "This young lady, this young man, thank you so much. If it weren't for your help, my stall would have been robbed, and my grandson and I would have no way to make a living." The words of the elderly woman reached William Carter's ears, deepening his gaze. He initially thought she knew the old lady, so was she simply helping her out of kindness? Anne Hathaway quickly shook her head and said, "Ma'am, you don't need to thank me, I didn't do anything. If it weren't for little Bowsy suddenly appearing, leading to Big Bowsy, she would have been bullied by those thugs. Ma'am, where are your grandchildren?" Seeing the elderly woman still having to go out to sell goods to support her grandchildren, Anne Hathaway couldn't help but ask curiously. The mention of this brought pain to the old woman's eyes. "My son and daughter-in-law have both passed away, leaving only my grandson." Hearing this, Anne Hathaway felt a pang of sympathy. Thinking of something, she quickly took out the remaining 500,000 dong from her monthly living expenses and handed it to the old woman. "Ma'am, please take this money for now." Seeing the amount Anne Hathaway offered, the old woman hesitated to accept. "How can I take this?" "It's nothing, just a small gesture, really," Anne Hathaway insisted, pressing the money into the woman's hands. The elderly woman's eyes welled up with tears, her voice full of gratitude. "Young lady, thank you so much. You have such a kind heart, no wonder you have a handsome husband and a lovely child." Hearing the woman's words, Anne Hathaway was puzzled. Realizing the misunderstanding, Anne Hathaway was about to explain when her phone rang, interrupting her. William Carter answered the call. I understand. Hanging up, he looked down at Benjamin Carter. Let's go. Benjamin Carter looked up at Anne Hathaway. Miss, where are you going? We can give you a lift. Anne Hathaway smiled slightly. No need, I can manage on my own, thank you very much, see you. She nodded politely to the man and started to leave. Her scraped knee throbbed painfully from the earlier fall. Anne Hathaway nearly stumbled but felt a strong, warm support around her waist. A strange scent, possibly masculine, enveloped her. Anne Hathaway froze in place, her mind going blank. Not only Anne Hathaway but William Carter also stood still. Oh. Miss, you're hurt. Benjamin Carter noticed Anne Hathaway's scraped knee, blood mixed with dirt, and her arm grazed from the fall. Benjamin Carter frowned with concern and looked up at William Carter. Dad. Let's take her to the hospital. Hearing this, Anne Hathaway quickly refused. No need to trouble you, it's just a minor injury, However, before she could finish, she felt herself being lifted. Anne Hathaway gasped, instinctively wrapping her arms around the man's neck, realizing she was being carried. Benjamin wants you to go to the hospital. His implication was that it was all Benjamin Carter's idea. With that, William Carter carried Anne Hathaway towards the car. Being held by William Carter, she felt his strong arms, his warm chest, and a pleasant scent. Anne Hathaway's heart suddenly raced, her pulse no longer steady. This was the first time in her 23 years that she had been carried princess style. Seeing the young master and the little young master return, and this time with the young master carrying a woman, Felix Reed's eyes widened in surprise, feeling his worldview turned upside down. Isn't this the girl from last time? William Carter carried Anne Hathaway in his arms and couldn't open the car door himself, so Benjamin Carter tiptoed to help. He placed Anne Hathaway inside the car. To the hospital, the man's voice was gentle, yet as commanding as a king's order. Felix Reed snapped back to reality and drove to the nearby hospital. Upon arrival, Anne Hathaway was carried inside again. Felix Reed called for a nurse. When the nurse used antiseptic to clean Anne Hathaway's wound, she couldn't help but let out a small ouch, her beautiful face scrunching up like a flower. Miss, does it hurt? A soft voice sounded beside her. Anne Hathaway looked over at Benjamin Carter, seeing the little boy resting his small head on the edge of the bed, his big round eyes filled with worry and concern. Not wanting to worry him, Anne Hathaway shook her head and said, No, it doesn't hurt at all. However, as soon as she finished speaking, the nurse continued to clean the other knee. Ouch. It's okay, let me take you home, a warm male voice came from behind. Anne Hathaway turned around and saw a tall man with gentle eyes approaching. It was William Carter. It's no trouble at all. You helped Benjamin, and I'm very grateful. Anne Hathaway felt a bit awkward, but William Carter's sincere gaze made it hard to refuse. She nodded gently. Thank you, then. William Carter smiled and led Anne Hathaway and Benjamin Carter out of the hospital. The afternoon sun cast a warm and pleasant atmosphere. On the way, Benjamin Carter kept asking questions and telling stories, making Anne Hathaway laugh. In the car, William Carter occasionally glanced at Anne Hathaway through the rearview mirror, sensing warmth and gentleness from her. He couldn't deny that a strange feeling was beginning to grow within him. When they arrived, Anne Hathaway thanked William Carter and Benjamin Carter once more before stepping out of the car. She stood watching the car drive away, feeling a slight pang of longing. That day, not only was the wound on her hand healed, but something in her heart also began to change. At that moment, a deep male voice resonated, You protected Benjamin, taking you home was the least we could do. Well, although she did protect the little boy, it was more accurate to say they had protected her. Looking into Benjamin Carter's sparkling eyes, Anne Hathaway firmly nodded. Then, sorry for the trouble. Back in the car, Felix Reed asked, Ma'am, may I have your address? Anne Hathaway, feeling a bit shy, gave him her home address. Felix Reed adjusted the GPS and started the car. Inside the car, everyone was silent for a while, and no one spoke. Anne Hathaway sat between the older boy on her left and the younger boy on her right. Feeling the strong presence of the man beside her, Anne Hathaway was so tense she didn't dare to breathe too heavily. "Oh right, Auntie, you still haven't told me your name." Benjamin Carter suddenly remembered, looking at her with expectant eyes. Last time, Anne Hathaway hadn't left her name, thinking they wouldn't meet again. "You're so beautiful, your name must be lovely too." Benjamin Carter's compliment made Anne Hathaway feel as though she was looking through rose-colored glasses, finding everything delightful. Anne Hathaway was touched by Benjamin Carter's words, such a young child already knew how to charm. Her name was quite ordinary, and she had never been complimented on it from childhood to adulthood. Throughout the journey, Benjamin Carter kept chatting with Anne Hathaway, and she didn't mind, answering his questions gently. The man beside them seemed not to pay attention, but in reality, he noticed every word and action. Benjamin seemed to really like this woman. As the car approached an intersection and was about to turn, a delivery vehicle suddenly ignored traffic rules and rushed out. Felix Reed immediately swerved sharply. Anne Hathaway leaned to the left, falling into the man's arms. Feeling the firm chest of the man, Anne Hathaway suddenly woke up and quickly sat up straight, apologizing. "Sorry, I didn't mean to, Mr. Carter." As she apologized, she carefully observed the man in front of her. The man's expressionless face seemed a bit more tense than before. Anne Hathaway couldn't help but swallow. A few seconds later, she heard the deep voice of the man, "It's okay." He just didn't understand why, when Anne Hathaway suddenly leaned against him, he not only didn't feel uncomfortable but also had an indescribable feeling. He couldn't quite pinpoint where this feeling came from. Seeing that William Carter wasn't angry, Felix Reed, sitting in the front seat, also breathed a sigh of relief. Normally, if any woman fell into the young master's lap, she would have been thrown out of the car by now. "Young master, sorry, it was because a car suddenly rushed out." The car stopped in front of the Hathaway family home. The luxurious car and the old buildings around created a strange contrast. "Thank you for bringing me back, and thank you very much for today. I'll get off now." Thinking about parting with Anne Hathaway, Benjamin Carter couldn't help but feel a bit reluctant. "Goodbye." Anne Hathaway smiled and waved at Benjamin Carter before getting out of the car. She slowly walked to the door of her house, her knees aching. Just as she was about to open the door with her key, she heard a familiar voice, "Anne." Hearing the call, Anne Hathaway turned around and saw Victoria Peterson, wearing 10-centimeter high heels, hurrying over. "Victoria, why are you here?" "Of course, I'm here to freeload. There was half a packet of hot pot seasoning left from yesterday, don't worry, I brought my own ingredients today," Victoria Peterson said as she opened the large LV bag on her back, filled with ingredients like potatoes, enoki mushrooms, crab meat, and pig's blood. It was the first time she saw someone using an LV bag to carry food. "Oh right, I saw a Maserati going the opposite way when I came here." "Wow, someone around here drives a Maserati." Such luxury cars appearing in the city's apartment area was unbelievable. Seeing Anne Hathaway's reaction, Victoria Peterson quickly sensed something, her well-made-up eyes narrowing. "Huh? Why do I smell gossip? Come on, let's go inside, tell me everything." Back in the rented room, Victoria Peterson noticed Anne Hathaway's injuries. "How did you get hurt? Did that Maserati hit you? How much did they compensate you? But knowing your soft heart, you probably let them go. Do you remember the license plate? Daring to hit my friend, I'll make them pay until they're bankrupt." Anne Hathaway could only remain speechless. Could her imagination be any wilder? "No, it's not like that. Victoria, calm down a bit." Anne Hathaway recounted the entire afternoon's events to Victoria Peterson. So you met them on the road again today? It's fate, haven't you thought about becoming their stepmother? Anne Hathaway. What kind of friend is this? She really wanted to hit her with a box of pig's blood. Chapter 10, Dislike for Women at the Carter Residence. Hope, it's already this late. Why haven't William and the others returned yet? Mr. Carter glanced at his watch and then turned to the woman beside him. Normally, they would have been home by now. William Carter and Benjamin Carter do not live at the main house of the Carter family, but every Friday evening they return. Benjamin Carter stays at the main house on Saturdays and Sundays. On Monday, a servant takes him to kindergarten. It might be due to traffic. Let me call and find out. William Carter's mother, Hope Bennett, took out her phone, ready to call him. Suddenly, they heard a noise outside. Madam, the young master and little master have returned. Not long after, two figures, one large and one small, entered. Benjamin, come here so Mr. Carter can give you a hug. As soon as Mr. Carter saw Benjamin Carter, he beamed with joy. Benjamin Carter took tiny, quick steps, running eagerly towards Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter lifted Benjamin Carter up, his face full of kindness, expressing immense love for his great-grandson. Back then, William Carter once said that hoping for a great-grandson to fall from the sky was more likely than waiting for him to marry and have children. Unexpectedly, not long after, William Carter informed him that he indeed had a great-grandson. Mr. Carter. Benjamin Carter's sweet voice called out to Mr. Carter. The old man felt even happier, his heart melting. Oh, it's only been a week, and my grandson Benjamin has grown already. Benjamin, don't tire out your Mr. Carter, William Carter's voice echoed. Hearing this, Benjamin Carter looked at the old man, pretending to want to get down. Mr. Carter, let me down, please. How could the old man bear to let go? He glared at William Carter. Your grandfather isn't old yet. I can still carry my great-grandson. Hurry to the dining room, the food is getting cold. Are you already hungry, Benjamin? Let's go eat. Mr. Carter carried Benjamin Carter towards the dining room. William, why are you late today? Hope Bennett couldn't help but ask. William Carter didn't explain much, ran into a bit of trouble. With that, he also headed towards the dining room. After finishing the hot pot, two people lay sprawled on the sofa. Victoria, what's wrong? Do you have something on your mind? Anne Hathaway looked at Victoria Peterson with concern. During the meal, Anne Hathaway noticed that Victoria Peterson seemed troubled. She waited, but Victoria didn't open up. Knowing how carefree she usually is, if something's bothering her, it must be significant. Unexpectedly discovered by Anne Hathaway, Victoria Peterson cautiously looked at Anne Hathaway, seemingly hesitating whether to speak or not. Victoria's expression showed she wanted to speak but held back, causing Anne Hathaway to frown. What on earth happened? Today, due to work, I went to eat at a hotel's restaurant and happened to see two people there. Who were they? If I didn't see wrong, it seemed to be your sister and that despicable man. They must have returned to the country. Although Anne Hathaway only knew Victoria after leaving the Hathaway family, when helping her move, Victoria had once seen a photo of three people fall out of a book, so she knew what they looked like. Anne Hathaway immediately stood frozen, her mind blank for a moment. Seeing this, Victoria couldn't help but swallow nervously, concernedly asking, Anne, are you okay? Anne Hathaway came back to her senses, a bitter smile with a hint of self-mockery appeared on her lips, shaking her head. What could possibly be wrong with me? It's been so many years. Even though she said that, Victoria knew well that she still couldn't let go. It makes sense, something like this, even someone as carefree as herself couldn't forget, let alone a kind-hearted person like Anne Hathaway. After thinking it over, Victoria decided not to mention that the couple seemed to be at the hotel for an engagement party. Otherwise, Anne would surely be even more heartbroken. Her first love, after 2 years of dating, cheated with her sister and went abroad together. The heavens are truly blind. Why didn't that awful couple just stay abroad instead of coming back to trouble others? Victoria said irritably. Anne Hathaway knew she was trying to comfort her, and with a grateful smile, she looked at her. Victoria, don't worry, I'm okay. Victoria glanced at her watch. Oh dear, I have work at 9 o'clock, I have to leave now. Just as she was about to go, she suddenly remembered something and turned back to look at her. You still haven't found a job yet, pretending to be rich for the old lady with 500 yuan, do you still have living expenses? Don't worry, I still have some. What do you mean still have? With that, Victoria opened her wallet, took out 1,000 yuan, and stuffed it into Anne Hathaway's hand. Victoria, it's really not necessary. Just consider it as me giving you some support. Damn, I'm running late, I have to go. With that, Victoria Peterson hurriedly left in her 10-centimeter high heels. Anne Hathaway watched Victoria Peterson's figure fade into the distance, feeling warmth in her heart. Life had taken much from her, but at least she still had a good friend like Victoria. During dinner, Mr. Carter said to William Carter, William, come to my study for a moment after dinner. After dinner, Hope Bennett took Benjamin Carter out to play. William Carter headed to Mr. Carter's study. Is there something you need from me, Grandpa? William, I heard that some classmates at school have been bullying Benjamin, saying he doesn't have a mother. William Carter pressed his lips together, his voice devoid of much emotion. I've already warned the parents of those kids, Grandpa, you don't need to worry. The elder Mr. Carter slammed his hand on the redwood table in anger. My great-grandson is being bullied. How can I not be concerned? Even if I'm not, don't you think Benjamin is affected? What kind of father are you? William Carter's eyes were deep, and he remained silent. Benjamin may be young and not say anything, but surely he also wants a mother in his heart. William Carter stayed silent, his gaze growing more profound. He had never spoken about this before, and he always hated being touched by any woman. He thought he didn't want a mother either. If you can't find his biological mother, then find him a stepmother. I've found a few suitable candidates, you should meet them someday, the elder continued. His words immediately made William Carter's face turn cold. So, Grandpa wanted him to go on blind dates. You know I don't like women, Grandpa. Don't like women? Then where did Benjamin come from? Could he have really fallen from the sky? As if recalling something, a dark shade briefly passed through the man's deep eyes. I'll consider it. With that, his tall figure turned and left the study. Chapter 11, Knowing Benjamin Mrs. And just as William Carter opened the door, Hope Bennett, who was eavesdropping outside, nearly stumbled into the room. Hope Bennett smiled awkwardly. Hello, son, what a coincidence to meet you here. Ignoring Hope Bennett, William Carter turned his back and walked away. After he left, Hope Bennett hurried into the room, curiously looking at Mr. Carter, who was still dazed by William Carter's words earlier. Dad, what did William just say? Did he agree to find a stepmother for Benjamin? She had tried to eavesdrop outside the door, but the house was too well soundproofed. She couldn't hear anything at all. William said he would consider it. Hearing this, Hope Bennett's expression of surprise mirrored Mr. Carter's when he heard William Carter's words. What a surprise! For so many years, William Carter had never conceded on the topic of finding a woman. And now he said he would consider it. Hope Bennett felt she should check if the sun would rise from the west tomorrow. Why did William suddenly concede? Could it be that he already has someone in mind? Hope Bennett guessed. Mr. Carter snorted lightly. It would be a miracle if that kid had someone in mind. Doesn't he know his grandson well enough? Countless young ladies in City A wanted to get close to him, but he never even glanced at them. It must be because of Benjamin that he agreed to compromise, right? Mentioning this, Hope Bennett lowered her eyes in sadness. She had also heard about Benjamin Carter being bullied at school for not having a mother. Leaving Mr. Carter's study, William Carter went straight to Benjamin Carter's room. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Benjamin lying on the table, drawing something. Hearing the door open, the boy immediately covered what was in front of him. Seeing William Carter at the door, the boy's voice rang out, "Dad! You should knock before entering the room, don't you know any manners?" Scolded by his son, William Carter remained silent. "Stay here, be good. I'll head back first." Every weekend, he brought Benjamin Carter here, where Grandpa Carter and Hope Bennett would spend time playing with the boy. "Oh," the boy replied indifferently, showing no intention of holding back. "Benjamin," William Carter called his son's name, wanting to say something but the words caught in his throat. His lips pressed into a thin line, he finally just said, "Nothing, I'm leaving now." With that, he closed the door and turned to leave. The relationship between him and Benjamin Carter was somewhat delicate. He loved Benjamin dearly, after all, he was his biological son, and his presence felt like the most unexpected gift heaven could give him. But the way a father expresses love for his son is different from that of a mother. His love for him was still not enough, and the boy also lacked maternal affection. Perhaps he really should find him a stepmother, so he could make up for the maternal love he was missing. A face briefly flashed in William Carter's mind. His eyes grew a bit deeper. "Benjamin, what do you want to play today? Do you want to play chess with Grandpa?" Benjamin Carter shook his little fuzzy head. "I stayed up late with homework yesterday, I want to go upstairs to sleep. If I don't wake up by noon, you don't need to call me for lunch." "Oh, my poor grandchild, is kindergarten homework really so heavy now?" Mr. Carter looked on with a sympathetic expression. Benjamin Carter quickly ate a few bites of rice and then went upstairs back to his room. Closing the door, he went to his bed, stuffed a pillow under the blanket to make it look like someone was sleeping there, and then quietly left the Carter house. Today was a holiday, and Anne Hathaway was planning to sleep in when a knock on the door woke her. "Who is it?" She rubbed her sleepy eyes and opened the door, but there was no one there. "Damn it! Who's playing pranks by knocking and running away?" "Auntie." At this moment, a sweet voice came from below. Anne Hathaway looked down, and when she saw Benjamin Carter, she immediately became alert. "Little bun. How did you get here?" "Benjamin missed Auntie, so I came to visit." Benjamin Carter's big round eyes sparkled as he looked at Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway was instantly melted by his cuteness. Benjamin Carter walked in, looking around Anne Hathaway's room. Her room wasn't big, the decor was simple, but it was filled with her scent, which he liked a lot. Seeing Benjamin Carter examining her room, Anne Hathaway shyly scratched her head. "Sorry, my place is a bit messy." Benjamin Carter shook his head vigorously like a rattle. "Not at all. Benjamin really likes Auntie's house. How did you get here?" Of course, Benjamin Carter didn't dare to say he had sneaked out. "I asked a driver to bring me." But it wasn't the family's driver, it was a taxi driver. "You still remember where my house is?" Benjamin Carter nodded his little head. "You told me yesterday, I remembered." Anne Hathaway widened her eyes in surprise. She thought she had only mentioned her address once yesterday. How did he remember? Such a good memory. A gift? Benjamin Carter, as if showing off a treasure, handed a drawing to Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway took the drawing from Benjamin Carter's hand, and upon seeing its content, she widened her eyes in astonishment. The drawing depicted yesterday's scene at the hospital, with her sitting on the hospital bed and the little boy blowing on her wound. The characters in the drawing were lifelike, clearly reflecting a lot of thought and time spent on it. "Auntie, do you like it?" Benjamin Carter's clear voice rang out. Anne Hathaway returned from the drawing to reality and nodded enthusiastically. "I love it." Hearing this, Benjamin Carter's chubby little face broke into a joyful smile. "It's good that Auntie likes it. I didn't expect Benjamin to be such a talented artist. It must have taken him a long time, right? The painting is so beautiful that even adults trained in art might struggle to match it, and Benjamin Carter is only 4 years old. Benjamin Carter quickly shook his little head. I drew it very quickly. The boy didn't want to tell his aunt that he had actually stayed up until midnight working on it, as she would surely feel sorry for him. Anne Hathaway looked at the painting again, her lips curving into a beautiful smile. She never expected Benjamin to give her such a gift. It could be considered the most sincere gift she had ever received. Benjamin Carter looked up, watching Anne Hathaway as she admired the painting with a smile. His aunt's smile was so beautiful. I will definitely take good care of it, Anne Hathaway said, carefully placing the painting in a drawer. Chapter 12, The urge to kidnap the little boy. Anne Hathaway went to the bathroom to wash her face and then returned to the living room. There, she saw Benjamin Carter sitting obediently on the sofa, blending perfectly with the stuffed animals around him, looking indescribably adorable. Anne Hathaway struggled to resist the urge to run over and shower the little darling with affection. Little darling, have you had breakfast yet? Even though it was almost 11 o'clock, they could start lunch. Benjamin Carter thought for a moment, then shook his head like a rattle, holding his small tummy, his big, round eyes sparkling as he looked at Anne Hathaway, his voice sweetly pleading, Auntie, Benjamin is hungry. Anne Hathaway almost had a nosebleed from the overwhelming cuteness. The little darling looked at her with eyes like a kitten waiting to be fed. You just wanted to bring all the best food in the world to him. I'll cook for you right away, just wait a moment, Anne Hathaway said, quickly heading to the kitchen. Hearing that his aunt would cook for him, Benjamin Carter's eyes lit up even more. His little legs hopped off the sofa, and he trotted after Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway opened the fridge, ready to showcase her cooking skills. However, seeing the empty fridge, she was suddenly at a loss. Looking down into Benjamin Carter's expectant eyes, Anne Hathaway swallowed nervously. Benjamin, how about I make you some egg noodles? Going out to buy ingredients would take at least an hour, and she worried he would be hungry. There were only noodles and eggs left in the house. Benjamin Carter nodded eagerly. As long as his aunt made it, he could eat anything. Then wait in the living room for a bit, and I'll be done soon. Benjamin wants to stay with Auntie. Thud. Anne Hathaway felt her heart being struck by his cuteness. So, Anne Hathaway busied herself in the kitchen, while Benjamin Carter followed her around like a little shadow. Very quickly, Anne Hathaway prepared 2 bowls of clear broth noodles and brought them to the coffee table. Since the house was small and lacked a larger dining area, Anne Hathaway often sat cross-legged at the coffee table to eat. Initially worried that Benjamin Carter wouldn't be used to it, she was relieved that he was small and fit perfectly at the coffee table. Benjamin Carter looked at the clear broth noodle bowl that Anne Hathaway placed in front of him. The white noodles floated in the broth with green vegetables, scallions, and an egg. Although it was just a simple clear broth noodle dish, it looked particularly enticing. Miss, why don't you have an egg? Benjamin Carter noticed that Anne Hathaway's bowl only had cabbage and no egg, so he quickly asked. Because there was only 1 egg left at home, Anne Hathaway replied, somewhat embarrassed. Benjamin Carter then picked up his chopsticks, split the egg in half, and placed 1 half into Anne Hathaway's bowl. His round face beamed with a smile. Now we both have some. Could she kidnap a child? But thinking of William Carter's cold face and strong demeanor, Anne Hathaway shivered and immediately dismissed the idea of kidnapping a child. Benjamin Carter took a bite of the noodles, his clear eyes widened, and he tilted his small head to look at Anne Hathaway, praising her. Auntie's noodles are so delicious. Anne Hathaway thought the boy was just trying to please her, as it was just a simple clear broth noodle dish. How could it be that good? Seeing her skeptical expression, Benjamin Carter earnestly said, Benjamin isn't lying to you. It's really delicious. Even better than the chef at home makes. Benjamin Carter's support naturally made Anne Hathaway very happy. She reached out to ruffle his fluffy little head. Then have some more, Benjamin. Benjamin Carter obliged, finishing the entire bowl, even drinking all the broth. There's nothing more satisfying than seeing your cooking completely devoured. Burp. Benjamin Carter let out a burp, his small belly now round. After lunch, Anne Hathaway needed to do laundry and clean the room. Benjamin Carter stuck close to her, following her wherever she went. At lunchtime, a servant knocked on the door, but there was no response from inside. The servant went downstairs to the dining room. "Sir, madam, I called for the young master, but he didn't respond." Mr. Carter looked concerned. He must be exhausted from staying up late doing homework last night. "Let him sleep a bit longer." The servant bowed and left. Time flew by, and it was 4 in the afternoon. Anne Hathaway finished cleaning the room and washing the week's pile of clothes. After hanging the clothes to dry, she returned to the room to find the small Benjamin Carter asleep on the sofa. Worried he might catch a cold, Anne Hathaway took a blanket, quietly approached, and gently covered him. His long, curled eyelashes cast a shadow on his fair skin, making him look adorably asleep. Anne Hathaway just wanted to sneak a kiss. At that moment, his long lashes fluttered like butterfly wings twice, then opened. As soon as he saw Anne Hathaway, Benjamin Carter excitedly said, sitting up and spreading his arms, "Hug." Vegetable market. Benjamin Carter curiously tilted his head. "What is a vegetable market?" Hearing Benjamin Carter's question, Anne Hathaway couldn't help but sigh. "Oh, Benjamin is such an adorable kid." "Well, it's a place to buy vegetables. There are many kinds of vegetables for sale, and you can buy whatever you want to eat." "Wow, that sounds amazing." Anne Hathaway took Benjamin Carter to a nearby vegetable market. Worried that Benjamin Carter might dirty his shoes, Anne Hathaway picked him up. The boy was delighted to be carried by his aunt. "Auntie, buy whatever you want, Benjamin can eat anything." Anne Hathaway approached a stall. "Miss, could I have 2 potatoes, a bunch of enoki mushrooms, and a bundle of dried bean curd sheets, please?" "Your son is so handsome," the vendor complimented as she gathered the vegetables. Realizing the misunderstanding, Anne Hathaway smiled awkwardly. She didn't want to explain in front of Benjamin that she wasn't his mother. Benjamin Carter's soft voice chimed in, "Auntie is also very beautiful." Flattered by Benjamin Carter's compliment, the vendor happily offered them a discount. "Ma'am, your son is so adorable. Why not let him become a child model? This child is the most beautiful and clever I've ever seen. You're truly blessed. This child is so cute, fair, and smooth-skinned, clearly born into a noble family, like a perfect mold." Anne Hathaway's mouth twitched at the vendor's somewhat commercial praise. Where did this lady see a resemblance to me? He clearly looks just like his father. Thanks to Benjamin Carter's adorable face, nearly every vendor sold their goods at half price or gifted items, with some even offering freebies for a sweet hello from Benjamin Carter. Anne Hathaway truly understood the power of cuteness as justice. While Anne Hathaway and Benjamin Carter were causing quite a stir at the market, the Carter family was in chaos over the young master's disappearance. "What? What do you mean you can't find the surveillance footage?" Mr. Carter's angry voice rang out. The subordinate trembled with fear. Either the kidnapper managed to avoid all the surveillance cameras, or the young master himself evaded them to run away. For an ordinary family, the second hypothesis would be absurd. But for the Carter family, they knew just how intelligent the young master was. Mr. Carter coldly instructed, "Keep searching. Don't inform William just yet." Knock knock, the sound of knocking echoed in the office. "Come in," the man's deep voice resonated. Felix Reed opened the door and carefully stepped inside. William Carter looked up, and upon seeing Felix's expression, his eyes darkened. "Has something happened to Benjamin?" "Master, do you have mind-reading abilities?" Felix Reed swallowed nervously and replied, "The young master is missing." Hearing this, William Carter's face immediately turned cold, and the atmosphere in the spacious office grew tense. "Details," he demanded in a short, cold voice. Felix Reed quickly responded, "We haven't found any trace of the young master yet. Mr. Carter has already sent people to search, but initially, it seems the young master ran off on his own. As if realizing something, a shadow flickered in William Carter's eyes. He calmly said, I see. Huh. Felix Reed was taken aback, not expecting such a composed reaction from him. Shouldn't the master be furious and ordering him to find the young master immediately? William Carter stood up, tell Mr. and Mrs. Carter not to worry, I'll bring him back. With that, he walked past the still confused Felix Reed and left the office. Leaving the market, Anne Hathaway carried Benjamin Carter in one arm and held several bags in the other. Benjamin Carter felt concerned, Auntie, let me down. Anne Hathaway was indeed a bit tired, but holding the little darling gave her an indescribable sense of fulfillment. But Benjamin worries about you. Benjamin Carter's round eyes were full of concern. Anne Hathaway was immediately touched. Not only was he handsome, but he also knew how to melt hearts. Little one, when you grow up, you'll surely be someone who captivates many girls. Benjamin Carter blinked his big, bright eyes, Auntie, what does captivate many girls mean? Does that mean all the girls will like me? Benjamin Carter wrapped his small arms around Anne Hathaway's neck, his little head nuzzling against her. Benjamin doesn't need all the girls to like him, just you, Auntie. Poof, the sound of a nosebleed spurted out. Anne Hathaway was once again overwhelmed by the cuteness. Such an adorable little boy, is it really impossible to steal him away? Chapter 14, Little Benjamin and Big Benjamin enter the house. As she was thinking this, she suddenly felt a strong presence. Anne Hathaway looked up. She saw a black Lamborghini parked at her doorstep, with the tall figure of William Carter leaning against the hood. Meeting William Carter's deep, dark eyes, Anne Hathaway instinctively shivered, nearly brought to her knees by his aura. She suddenly felt like she was caught red-handed trying to steal someone's child. Spare me. I was just thinking about it. I have the guts to think about stealing but not to actually do it. Sensing a familiar presence, Benjamin Carter, who was leaning against Anne Hathaway's neck, also looked up. Seeing his father standing at the door to his aunt's house, the boy frowned in displeasure. In an unhappy tone, he said, Dad, why are you here? William Carter didn't answer Benjamin's question. Instead, he asked, Where have you two been? Auntie wanted to make hot pot for Benjamin. We just got back from the market. William Carter's gaze lingered on the bags in Anne Hathaway's hands as he walked toward them. Feeling the man's approach, along with a strong masculine presence, Anne Hathaway swallowed nervously. However, she only saw the man stop in front of her, slightly bent over, and took all the bags from her hands. Anne Hathaway froze on the spot, wondering what was happening. Benjamin, acting like that is not gentlemanly. Understanding what his father meant, Benjamin Carter pouted, Auntie wouldn't let me down. He admitted, in truth, he didn't want to get down, he loved the feeling of being held by his aunt. William Carter glared at Benjamin Carter. Benjamin immediately clung tightly to Anne Hathaway's neck. Anne was momentarily startled, then realized, her big eyes innocently looking at the incredibly handsome man in front of her. Was he blaming Benjamin for not helping her with the bags? Anne quickly said, Oh, Mr. Carter, how could I let Benjamin, a child, help me carry things? Benjamin turned back and stuck his tongue out at William Carter, as if to say, I have Auntie's protection. Sorry, Benjamin came to find you on his own, causing you trouble. Hearing this, Anne was surprised, her voice full of astonishment, Benjamin came to find me by himself? Didn't the Hathaway family allow him to come here? Unexpectedly, his father told the truth, and Benjamin angrily glared at the man. A soft voice rang in Benjamin's ears, Benjamin missed Auntie, so he came. Anne's heart immediately softened, her voice gentle as she advised, Benjamin, you can't do that, you know. Your family will be very worried about you. Benjamin lowered his head, looking very pitiful, I understand. Anne looked up at the man in front of her, her expression apologetic, I'm sorry, Mr. Carter, I didn't know Benjamin came to find me by himself. I thought you had agreed, otherwise, I would have contacted you. After all, who would have thought a 4-year-old could find his way here on his own? Thinking about Benjamin coming by himself, and felt a bit scared. What if he met a bad person on the way or got kidnapped? The boy looked so adorable, it was hard for anyone not to want to kidnap him. This isn't Miss N's fault, meaning she didn't need to apologize to him. Then I'll hand Benjamin over to you. Mr. Carter, please give me the bags too. Anne's words sounded like an exchange of people and goods. She was reluctant to hand over Little Treasure. But he was Little Treasure's biological father. William Carter held Benjamin with an unhappy face but showed no intention of giving the bags back to Anne. What did this mean? Did he want to take her food along with Little Treasure? Well, since the food was obtained thanks to Little Treasure's cuteness, it was only natural for him to take it. Anne turned and went to her door, opened it, and stepped inside, closing it behind her. Outside, William Carter almost got hit in the nose by the door. Anne changed her shoes and heard a knock on the door, surprisingly opened it. Seeing the tall man and the small boy at the door, she widened her eyes in surprise. Mr. Carter? Weren't they supposed to leave? The man raised his hand, handing her the bag. Oh, thank you. And took it. It seemed he had forgotten to give it to her earlier. However, the next moment, the man, holding Little Treasure, casually stepped inside. Little Treasure even conveniently closed the door behind him. Surprised that William Carter came in, and widened her eyes, Carter, Mr. Carter, is there something else? Ah. And was momentarily unresponsive. Benjamin wants to eat hot pot made by you. Hearing this, Benjamin in William's arms also turned his head in surprise to look at him. Sensing his gaze, William glanced at him. As if receiving a signal, Benjamin turned to Anne. Yes. Auntie. Benjamin wants to eat the hot pot you make. With Benjamin personally expressing his wish, how could Anne refuse? Besides, she had already planned to make hot pot for Benjamin. And looked at William Carter standing still, showing no intention of leaving. On William Carter's exceptionally handsome face, there remained a calm and composed expression. I want to stay with Benjamin. Of course, parents certainly feel uneasy when their child eats at a stranger's house. Anne Hathaway nodded in understanding. William Carter glanced at the shoe rack, which only had 2 pairs of women's slippers, no men's slippers. Anne Hathaway looked a bit awkward. I don't have men's slippers at my house. No man had ever visited her home, so how could there be men's slippers? Mr. Carter, please come right in. William Carter carried Benjamin Carter as he stepped inside. Looking around the entire room, although it wasn't large and the decor was simple and modest, everything was neatly arranged and very clean. There were no expensive decorations, yet every corner exuded a sense of coziness. Is this what a typical family feels like? Seeing the tall man in a high-end black suit standing in her home, Anne Hathaway suddenly felt her house was honored, fortunate. Mr. Carter, my home is small, please don't mind. I'll go prepare the hot pot first, feel free to make yourself comfortable. After saying this, Anne Hathaway went into the kitchen to start preparing the ingredients. William Carter sat down on the sofa, and as soon as he let the little one out of his arms, he saw a small figure quickly dart towards the woman. Chapter 15, The Grown Child Cannot Be Kept. William Carter shook his head, feeling that the grown child could not be kept. Auntie. Is there anything Benjamin can help with? Unexpectedly, Benjamin Carter ran in. The kitchen had no door, and the man sitting outside seemed to have his eyes on them, making Anne Hathaway hesitant to ask his son for help. No need, I can manage myself, she replied. No way. You'll get too tired. Benjamin Carter insisted, clearly wanting to help. He seemed upset for being scolded by William Carter earlier for not helping Anne Hathaway carry things. Well then, Anne Hathaway pondered. She couldn't let the boy use a knife, it was too dangerous. Washing vegetables was also out of the question, she couldn't bear to see those fair hands get dirty. "Benjamin, could you help separate these enoki mushrooms?" Benjamin Carter nodded obediently and happily took the mushrooms to work on them. Before long, Anne Hathaway had prepared the hot pot broth and ingredients, with the aroma wafting from the kitchen. "Auntie! I'm done," Benjamin Carter exclaimed, rushing over to show Anne Hathaway the perfectly separated enoki mushrooms. Anne Hathaway looked at the bowl of meticulously separated mushrooms. "Are you a Virgo?" Benjamin Carter shook his head. "I'm not. But my dad is." Anne Hathaway, she brought the induction cooker, hot pot, and ingredients from the kitchen and set them on the coffee table in the living room. Benjamin Carter, familiar with the routine, found a cushion and sat on the floor. Anne Hathaway, feeling a bit embarrassed, said, "Sorry, Mr. Carter, I don't have a dining table." The man also took a cushion, mimicking Benjamin Carter's cross-legged seating. However, his long legs took up a lot of space. Benjamin Carter stared at the steaming hot pot, the aroma filling his nose, and swallowed. "Auntie, is this hot pot?" Anne Hathaway nodded, instructing him like a child, "Put in whatever you want to eat, wait for it to cook, and then you can eat it." Realizing something, she quickly explained to the man across from her, "I'm teaching Benjamin." "Dad, have you ever had hot pot before?" Benjamin Carter tilted his head to ask the man. "No," he replied bluntly. "These two, one a young master and the other an older one." "Hey, the food inside is cooked, you can eat now," Benjamin Carter said, picking up a piece of tofu skin. As he tasted it, his eyes widened. "Wow! It's delicious." With that, he began eating enthusiastically. As a hot pot enthusiast, Anne Hathaway was delighted to receive such approval. Her little darling indeed. She glanced at the man across from her. He ate quietly, and despite sitting cross-legged at a hot pot meal, his every movement was as elegant as if he were dining in a Michelin-starred restaurant. Anne Hathaway couldn't help but wonder if they were using the same chopsticks and eating the same food. However, his innate nobility indicated that this man was extraordinary. They shouldn't have known each other, let alone dined together. But such encounters were ultimately fleeting. After dinner, Benjamin Carter's small belly was as round as a little mountain. After finishing their meal, it was customary for them to leave. "Sister, I need to go to the bathroom." Anne Hathaway pointed towards the bathroom, and Benjamin Carter went in. Thus, only Anne Hathaway and William Carter were left sitting together in the living room. When the boy left, only the man remained, and Anne Hathaway suddenly felt the space become more confined. "What job are you currently doing, Ms. N?" the man's voice suddenly echoed. Anne Hathaway was momentarily stunned, not expecting the man to abruptly ask her this question. Her small, fair face, free of makeup, showed a hint of embarrassment. "I am a preschool teacher, but I haven't found a kindergarten to work at full-time yet, I'm just doing part-time work." Understanding that the man wanted to help her find a job, Anne Hathaway excitedly declined, "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Carter, but there's no need." She didn't want the man to think she was kind to the boy just because she saw their special status and wanted to gain something from them. Seeing Anne Hathaway refuse so fervently, a shadow passed over William Carter's eyes. "I spoke too much." Anne Hathaway quickly shook her head. "Mr. Carter, you only meant well." Benjamin Carter finished using the restroom and returned. "Benjamin, let's go." Benjamin Carter seemed reluctant. "Sister, can I come to see you again?" Anne Hathaway was momentarily unsure how to respond. She really liked Benjamin, but after all, he was someone else's child. Benjamin Carter sadly lowered his large eyes, which usually shone like stars, but now appeared gloomy. "Don't you want to see Benjamin?" "Of course not." Hearing this, Benjamin Carter's eyes immediately brightened. "So can Benjamin come to see you again?" Anne Hathaway cautiously observed William Carter's expression. His face was as unreadable as ever, concealing his emotions. "Yes, if your family agrees, but today's incident cannot happen again, understand?" Running off on your own will surely worry your family. Anne Hathaway gently advised. Upon hearing this, Benjamin Carter beamed and nodded vigorously. Benjamin understands. Go home. William Carter's deep voice resonated. Reluctantly, Benjamin Carter was carried away by William Carter. Anne Hathaway stepped to the door to see them off, watching as the black Lamborghini sped away like a panther. Only after the car's lights disappeared from view did she close the door. She had a feeling that this might be the last time she would see the adorable boy. After all, how could his family allow him to frequently visit an unfamiliar woman with no stable job? Thinking this, Anne Hathaway felt a twinge of sadness. She genuinely liked the boy. Although she was a kindergarten teacher and naturally fond of children, she felt an indescribable closeness to him. Benjamin, don't do this again, okay? Benjamin Carter huffed, turning away from the man. Why did you come here, Dad? Did you think I wouldn't remember the address? Both father and son Carter had excellent memories. As soon as Felix Reed mentioned that the boy had run off, his first thought was that he had gone to find this woman. Chapter 16, This father and son have other intentions. At the main house of the Carter family, Mr. Carter and Hope Bennett received a call from Felix Reed and were waiting in the living room. Why isn't William back yet? Haven't they found Benjamin? Hope Bennett worriedly tapped her foot, restless with anxiety. William said he would bring Benjamin back, we just have to wait. Don't you trust William? Not long after, the sound of a car was heard outside. The housekeeper went to open the door. Two figures, one large and one small, entered. Seeing Benjamin Carter, Hope Bennett immediately rushed over, embracing him. Benjamin, where did you run off to? You know, when Grandma opened the blanket and only saw a pillow, she was nearly scared to death. Benjamin Carter knew he was in the wrong and bowed his head. Grandma, Grandpa, I'm sorry. Benjamin went out to find a friend. Mr. Carter spoke up. Anyway, it's good that you're back. Benjamin, don't do that again. If you want to go somewhere, just let us know. Well, I'll be going now. William Carter was about to leave when Mr. Carter called him back. Are you free for lunch tomorrow? William Carter turned to look at Mr. Carter. Is there something wrong? Ahem. Mr. Carter coughed slightly, a bit embarrassed. An old friend of mine is coming over tomorrow. We've arranged to have lunch together. I'll send you the restaurant address later. Please join us for lunch tomorrow. Hearing this, William Carter frowned slightly. Do I really have to go? Don't worry, it won't take much of your time. William Carter pressed his thin lips together and replied coolly, all right, I understand. His tall figure turned as he left the main villa. After they both left, Anne Hathaway lay sprawled on the sofa, completely relaxed. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. Anne Hathaway opened it to find Victoria Peterson standing there. Victoria, why are you here at this hour? I forgot my clothes and makeup remover in a taxi today, so I came to borrow some clothes from you. Anne Hathaway knew that Victoria Peterson lived with her grandmother. Despite her stylish and meticulously made-up appearance when out, with false eyelashes and bright red lips, she always changed into neat sportswear and went makeup-free at home. No matter how much fun she had outside, she always appeared as a good child in front of her grandmother. Anne Hathaway understood Victoria Peterson's family situation. They shared similar backgrounds, which explained their friendship. As soon as she entered the house, the strong smell of hot pot filled the air. Oh my! Victoria Peterson exclaimed upon seeing the half-eaten hot pot on the table. Anne Hathaway, you're so inconsiderate. Making hot pot today without inviting me. Both Victoria Peterson and Anne Hathaway were hot pot enthusiasts. I didn't plan on making hot pot today either, Anne Hathaway replied with an awkward smile. Victoria Peterson quickly noticed 3 sets of chopsticks and bowls on the table. Her finely made-up eyes narrowed as she looked at Anne Hathaway inquisitively. Why are there 3 sets of chopsticks and bowls? Who was here? Confess. With her arms crossed, she clearly expected an honest answer, ready to forgive if truthful but to punish if evasive. Anne Hathaway had no choice but to tell the truth. Listening to Anne Hathaway, Victoria Peterson frowned. Why do I feel like those father and son have other intentions? Anne Hathaway laughed at herself. What could they possibly want with me? All her assets probably couldn't even buy a single part of their car. At that moment, a slender finger appeared in front of her. Huh? Victoria Peterson rolled her eyes. Their intention is you. Why do I feel like they really want you to be the stepmother? If they wanted her to be the stepmother to that boy, wouldn't that mean marrying that man? In Anne Hathaway's mind flashed the face of William Carter, with his cold, handsome expression, features as if sculpted, and every gesture exuding innate arrogance and nobility. A man as remarkable as that, how could he possibly notice her? Anne Hathaway quickly shook her head vigorously, protesting, no way, no way. Victoria, stop overthinking it. Isn't your imagination a bit too wild? Victoria Peterson rested her chin on her hand. I'm just making a logical guess with evidence. Anyway, it's best if you don't get involved with those two. You're a young woman, don't go crazy and become someone's stepmother. Let me tell you, I've seen it a lot, men with kids can easily turn out to be the worst. I'm going to remove my makeup first. Lend me an outfit, will you? Victoria Peterson said as she headed to the bathroom. She returned to her room and took out a simple sports outfit from the closet. Anne Hathaway knocked on the bathroom door. The door opened, a hand reached out, and Anne Hathaway handed over the clothes. Then she started tidying up the dishes. The bathroom door clicked open, and Victoria Peterson stepped out. Anne Hathaway looked up to see a girl dressed in neat sportswear, with straight hair, a bare face looking like a high school student stepping out. Anne Hathaway stood frozen in place, her eyes wide like saucers. Seeing her reaction, Victoria Peterson gave her a sideways glance. It's not like it's the first time you've seen it. Why are you so surprised? Still the familiar style, still the familiar sideways glance. It really is Victoria. It's just that every time you put on makeup, you look so different, like a completely different person. On regular days, Victoria Peterson always has her hair in seductive waves, wears sophisticated makeup, dresses in a stylish and alluring way, and dons 10-centimeter high heels that make her legs look even longer. But now, with her bare face and makeup free, her skin looks radiant. Even after removing the heavy eye makeup, her eyes remain large and expressive, even more vibrant without makeup. Victoria Peterson pouted. What do you mean? Do I look ugly after taking off my makeup? Of course not. You're always beautiful. My Victoria is the most beautiful in the world. You should change your name to Beautiful Peterson. Anne Hathaway complimented. Well, I'm heading out now. I promised my grandmother I'd come home early today. As Victoria Peterson stepped out the door, she quickly turned back to warn, I've told you before, don't foolishly become someone's stepmother. You're so naive, I'm really worried you'll get tricked. Saying this, she covered her forehead with her hand, shaking her head continuously. Anne Hathaway. She's not naive. Just not very smart. If you don't go back, Grandma might call. Oh. I'm leaving. Goodbye. Her words still echoed in the air, but she was already gone. Chapter 17, They are about to get engaged. After cleaning the kitchen, Anne Hathaway was about to take a shower and relax when her phone suddenly rang. Picking it up, she saw the number on the screen, and her face immediately turned cold. The phone rang for a long time, echoing in the quiet room like a haunting bell. Anne Hathaway finally answered. Her tone was emotionless. Hello. Anne, Amelia and Daniel have recently returned to the country. On the other end was the voice of Anne Hathaway's father, Harold Hathaway. The day after tomorrow is Amelia and Daniel's engagement party. You're Amelia's sister and a member of the Hathaway family, so you should attend. Harold Hathaway's words made the corner of Anne Hathaway's mouth curl into a mocking smile. This was the first call she had received from her father in over 4 years since leaving home. Yet it was to invite her to the engagement party of her half-sister and ex-boyfriend. What does their engagement have to do with me? Why should I attend? I don't consider myself a sister to the Hathaway heiress. Didn't you kick me out of the Hathaway family long ago? When was I ever a member of the Hathaway family? You are truly an ungrateful child. Harold Hathaway was so angry he couldn't contain himself at Anne Hathaway's attitude. At this moment, a gentle voice from Amelia Hathaway came through the line. Dad, does sister not want to come? Let me talk to her. Anne Hathaway immediately hung up and turned off her phone to avoid being disturbed by Amelia Hathaway's insincere words. After hanging up, Anne Hathaway stood still, her father's words echoing in her mind. The day after tomorrow is Amelia and Daniel's engagement. The corner of Anne Hathaway's mouth twisted into a bitter, sarcastic smile. The next morning, Anne Hathaway woke up on time. Currently, she hadn't found a full-time job and was only working part-time at a restaurant. The restaurant where she worked part-time was a high-end French restaurant in City A. The patrons were usually the city's elite, as dining there was very expensive and required reservations in advance. Restaurants like this usually don't hire part-time staff, even servers are required to have a college degree. Anne Hathaway got this job thanks to a stroke of luck. Once, on the street, she saw an elderly man fall, and no one dared to help. Anne Hathaway approached, helped him up, and took him to the hospital. The elderly man's son was the owner of this restaurant. When he learned she was looking for a job, he offered her a part-time position to show his gratitude. By noon, the restaurant was at its busiest. The restaurant door opened, and a woman dressed in the latest Chanel outfit, looking like a wealthy heiress, walked in. Welcome, ma'am. May I ask if you have a reservation? The woman glanced at Anne Hathaway and casually replied, the Carters. Anne Hathaway checked the reservation list, maintaining a professional smile. Ma'am, please follow me. She led the woman to the reserved table, poured some lemon water, and asked, Ma'am, would you like to order now? If you need anything else, please call me. After bowing, Anne Hathaway stepped back. Anne, could you go to the front and help with the guests a bit? I'm a little busy. Ah, sure. Anne Hathaway walked to the door. Not long after, the restaurant door opened again. A pair of long legs wrapped in expensive suit fabric stepped in. The word welcome barely left her lips before she paused upon seeing the guest's face. Anne Hathaway was stunned to see the man before her. Wasn't he the famous Mr. Carter? Clearly, William Carter didn't expect to see Anne Hathaway here either, as his steps halted and his gaze rested on her face. He noticed she was wearing the restaurant's uniform, with a name tag pinned to her chest. A subtle glint flashed in William Carter's eyes. So, this part-time job she mentioned was working as a waitress here? Anne Hathaway was the first to regain her composure, putting on a professional smile. Mr. Carter, did you make a reservation? 12 o'clock, Carter. Anne Hathaway felt she had asked a rather silly question. 12 o'clock. Carter. Wasn't it? Please follow me. Anne Hathaway slightly bowed, gesturing for William Carter to follow her to the table. So he was here for a date. The woman earlier seemed to be of the same status as him. Could she be the biological mother of little Carter? Anne Hathaway's mind wandered involuntarily. As they approached, the woman noticed William Carter's presence. She quickly stood up, a radiant smile on her face. Mr. Carter. Hearing the call, and seeing a woman not far away waving at him, William Carter slightly frowned without revealing it. He vaguely understood something. Anne Hathaway led William Carter to the table. Would you like to order now? Anne Hathaway asked professionally. The woman's expression darkened, as she hadn't even greeted William Carter before being interrupted. The woman was about to ask Anne Hathaway to leave when she heard William Carter's deep voice. what are the restaurant's recommended dishes? Black truffle soup, premium foie gras, and Hathaway listed a few of the restaurant's specialties. Each of the dishes you mentioned, 2 portions. Huh. And Hathaway was surprised, but isn't that too much for 2 people? You might not finish it. The woman across sneered, assuming she was just a waitress unfamiliar with the world. Do you think we can't afford it? And Hathaway quickly shook her head. I didn't mean that, I'll place the order right away. With that, she bowed professionally and turned to leave. After Anne Hathaway left, the woman's mocking expression vanished, replaced by a polite smile. Mr. Carter, I've heard of you for a long time, my grandfather is. The woman's sentence was abruptly cut off by William Carter's cold interruption. Today, my grandfather asked me to come, and I didn't know it would be like this. William Carter's face was expressionless, showing no regard for the other party. Seeing this woman, William Carter realized he had been tricked by his grandfather. William Carter's gaze briefly followed the direction Anne Hathaway had left. He would certainly leave immediately without any consideration. Sensing the rejection in William Carter's words, the woman's expression turned awkward. After all, it was Mr. Carter's choice, and the woman was a distinguished lady from a well-known family in City A. If it were any other man, the woman would surely leave right away. But who was the man in front of her? The heir to the Carter bloodline, the wealthiest family in City A, the person in charge of the Carters' leading national corporation, the man whom prestigious ladies across the country most desired to marry. Prestigious ladies in City A were eager to marry into the Carter family, and meeting this man was no easy feat according to legend. William Carter hated being touched by women and had a 4-year-old son. But so what? With so much prestige and good looks, the distinguished ladies in City A were eager to be the stepmother to his son. Oh, I see. Actually, I only found out after arriving here. Mr. Carter, there's no need to worry, let's just consider this a simple meal. Meeting William Carter was already an advantage over other women. William Carter did not respond. Anne wasn't naive, he clearly understood the intentions of the woman in front of him. Anne, I'm sorry for troubling you earlier. I can handle that table now. To provide the best service to customers, each of their staff members was responsible for 23 tables. It's no problem. Here's what they just ordered. Wow, did just 2 people order all this? Taking the iPad from Anne Hathaway, the server walked away. The man across from her sat like an eternal iceberg, silently present. Since sitting down, he hadn't glanced at her even once. Faced with such a promising opportunity, the woman couldn't simply let it go and tried to think of ways to start a conversation with him. I heard that Mr. Carter got his MBA in the US at just 18. That's impressive. I just returned with my MBA from the US this year. She believed that by saying this, she was both complimenting William Carter and demonstrating her own educational achievements. However, the man across from her showed no reaction, as if even uttering a single word was too much. Seeing William Carter's lack of response, the woman's expression stiffened. Of course, with his level of excellence, he must have encountered many accomplished women and was likely used to it. So, she tried to engage him further. My grandfather is Liam Russell. He had a great relationship with Mr. Carter, they were old comrades. Unfortunately, our family moved abroad, otherwise, we might have met long ago. The man across from her remained unresponsive, as if he hadn't heard her at all. For the first time in her life, the woman experienced such blatant disregard, leaving her feeling indescribably embarrassed. Fortunately, at that moment, the server arrived with the food cart. Seeing that the server bringing the food had changed, William Carter's eyes darkened slightly. The server hesitated for a moment before replying, "This was originally my job, but someone took over for me for a bit." William Carter's face showed no emotion, but a hint of coldness lingered in his eyes, and he said nothing more. At this moment, Anne Hathaway's figure appeared in his line of sight. She led a chubby guest to a seat diagonally in front of him and handed the menu to the guest. When the guest took the menu, he could have taken it from below but deliberately touched Anne Hathaway's hand. And stiffened slightly. The guest looked over the menu, ordered some dishes, and a bottle of red wine. After the order, and walked straight ahead without daring to look at William Carter, fearing he might misunderstand something. Yet, she was inexplicably curious about his relationship with the woman opposite him. What were they discussing? And felt as if someone was watching her, but she didn't dare confirm it. Perhaps she was overthinking. How could it be William Carter watching her? Not long after, and returned to the table with the wine. "Sir, here is your wine." The guest squinted at her, "Pour it for me." And picked up the corkscrew to open the bottle. "Oh, pretty girl, you're doing it wrong, let me show you." The guest said, standing up and placing his hand over Anne's as she opened the bottle. Surprised by his touch, and quickly withdrew her hand, causing the wine bottle to fall and shatter on the floor. Anne's eyes widened in panic, and she hurriedly apologized, "Sir, I'm sorry, it was an accident." This bottle of wine was worth tens of thousands of yuan. Initially, she thought the guest would be furious, but instead, he smiled. "Don't be scared, pretty girl, just spend a night with me, and I won't make you pay for the wine." And immediately refused, "Absolutely not." She couldn't believe the guest wanted her to spend the night with him. Offended by her blunt refusal, the guest's face turned cold. "A mere server dares to give me attitude? You broke my wine, if you won't sleep with me, you have to pay for it." And was instantly frightened. How could she afford to pay for such an expensive bottle? "You harassed me, which is why I accidentally broke the wine," and said, on the verge of tears. The guest raised his voice, confident no one would stand up for a mere server. However, a cold male voice interrupted, "I saw everything." Shocked that someone dared to intervene, the guest turned around, ready to rage, but froze when he saw William Carter approaching. "Carter, CEO Carter. I've admired you for a long time, I'm Edward Walker, chairman of the Walkers Group." The once arrogant man became immediately submissive upon seeing William Carter. Hearing William Carter's voice, and was stunned, and as his presence loomed beside her, her mind went blank. Ignoring Edward Walker's introduction, William Carter repeated, "I saw everything." Edward Walker was so frightened he nearly wet himself. Yes. I harassed her. No need to pay for the wine, no need. I hope not to see CEO Walker in this restaurant again." William Carter's voice was calm, even sounding somewhat polite. Every word and syllable made Edward Walker feel on edge, as if a chilling voice seeped down his spine, causing him to shiver. I'm going now," Edward Walker said and immediately fled. Just then, the deep voice of the man echoed beside him, "Are you all right?" Anne Hathaway was startled awake and quickly shook her head, "No, I'm fine." Her heart was racing, and she dared not look at the man. She hadn't expected him to come to her aid in such an awkward situation. "Thank you for earlier." His tone suggested he would help anyone. After speaking, he returned to his seat. Chapter 19, The Cheater Gets What They Deserve. Other staff approached Anne Hathaway. "Anne, go take a break in the back." Incidents of customers harassing staff here weren't uncommon, but most patrons were wealthy, so they had to endure it. Anne Hathaway nodded and went into the staff lounge. William Carter returned to his seat. The woman opposite him remained in shock, taking a long moment to regain her composure. William Carter, who usually wouldn't spare her a word, had just stood up to protect a staff member. As William Carter watched Anne Hathaway leave, he had no intention of staying any longer. He looked up, his eyes devoid of emotion, and said to the woman in front of him, "Tell my grandfather I don't like you." With that, he stood and left before she could respond. Anne Hathaway rested for a while in the staff lounge, and when she came out, she noticed William Carter's table was empty. A complex feeling rose within her. What was his relationship with that woman? Boyfriend and girlfriend? Just friends? Or was she Benjamin's biological mother? How did this concern her? But if he hadn't helped her earlier, who knows how things might have turned out. Today, Anne Hathaway worked the morning shift, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. She changed back into her clothes in the staff room. As she left the restaurant, she ran into the two people she least wanted to see at the entrance. Seeing a man and a woman appear before her, Anne Hathaway's steps faltered. Likewise, the pair didn't expect to see her there and both stopped. Six eyes met, and the air seemed to freeze. 4 or 5 years had passed without much change for them. Amelia Hathaway was elegantly dressed, wearing a white Dior dress, a nude Gucci handbag, and classic Valentino studded heels. She still looked like a gentle, harmless young lady from a noble family. Daniel Sullivan, compared to before, was more composed and handsome. The young man in a white shirt and jeans from memory had become a mature man in a white shirt and trousers. Anne Hathaway wore no makeup, her shiny black hair tied in a simple ponytail, a white t-shirt, long jeans, white sneakers, and a canvas backpack. Their attire alone showed they belonged to different worlds. Finally, Amelia Hathaway was the first to regain her composure, her voice as gentle as ever, with a hint of surprise. "Sister, what a coincidence to see you here." Anne Hathaway also regained her composure. "I didn't check the calendar before going out today." Even though she had heard from Victoria Peterson and her father that they had returned. Amelia Hathaway understood the implication in Anne Hathaway's words but pretended not to and continued the conversation. "Sister, Dad called you yesterday to tell you that the day after tomorrow is my engagement party with Daniel. Can you come? After all, we are sisters, and it's the most important day for me. I really hope you can come so our family can be reunited." Amelia Hathaway's large eyes looked expectantly at Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway felt most disgusted by Amelia Hathaway's feigned innocence, yet she managed to deceive everyone. Her face showed no favorable expression. "Why should I participate? Sisters. Just because our birthdays are a month apart, half-sisters. Family reunion. I don't consider myself part of the Hathaway family." Hearing this, Amelia Hathaway lowered her eyes in disappointment, looking as if she was about to cry. "Sister, I know there are things you blame me for, but it's been a long time. The day after tomorrow is my engagement ceremony with Daniel, and I hope to receive your blessing." Amelia Hathaway's demeanor and words made Anne Hathaway feel repulsed. She had met shameless people before, but never anyone as shameless as this. What does it mean by, "It's been a long time"? Hoping to receive her blessing? According to their logic, her sister steals her boyfriend, her first love betrays her, and after a few years, she's supposed to forgive them? Anne Hathaway looked at the frail Amelia Hathaway, as if she were a reincarnation of Lin Dayu. It's incomprehensible. Are men blindly fond of this White Lotus type? Fine, a blessing. I wish you both a long life together, as the saying goes, a whore with a dog, may they last forever. Please don't go harming others. Sister, why would you say that about us? Hearing Anne Hathaway's words, Amelia Hathaway looked even more aggrieved, her eyes immediately misting over as if she had suffered a great injustice. Beside her, Daniel Sullivan, who had been silent, frowned and wrapped an arm around Amelia Hathaway's shoulder, silently comforting her. Daniel Sullivan's gaze settled on Anne Hathaway. "Anne, why have you become like this?" His words were full of disappointment. Seeing Daniel Sullivan comforting Amelia Hathaway, Anne Hathaway thought she no longer felt anything, yet her heart still ached. Daniel Sullivan's words made Anne Hathaway's heart tighten even more. How dare this despicable couple ask why she had become like this? Before Anne Hathaway could respond, Amelia Hathaway leaned in, her eyes shimmering as she looked at Daniel Sullivan. "Daniel, don't speak to my sister like that, it is indeed our fault." Daniel Sullivan's brow furrowed even more deeply as he looked down at Amelia Hathaway with a pained expression. "Amelia, you are always so kind-hearted." Anne Hathaway almost couldn't hold back her nausea. These two were such good actors, why not pursue an acting career? They'd surely win an Oscar. Ah, that's right, we're here for a meal. Have you eaten yet? If you don't mind, we'd like to invite you to join us, Amelia Hathaway said considerately, without taking offense. Anne Hathaway kept a cold face, showing no gratitude, no need. Sister, why are you here? Are you here to eat? Or? Amelia Hathaway glanced at the restaurant sign in front. In her heart, she knew clearly that given Anne Hathaway's current situation, she couldn't afford to dine at such a place. Although Anne Hathaway always believed that as long as she could support herself, there was nothing shameful about it, she didn't want to appear weak in front of them or let them think she wasn't doing well. Anne Hathaway was momentarily unsure how to respond, as she was actually working there. When she didn't know what to do, she suddenly felt a weight on her shoulder and was pulled into a firm embrace by a strong arm. Chapter 20, I am her boyfriend. A deep, warm male voice sounded beside her. Sorry, my love, for keeping you waiting. Anne Hathaway stood frozen, completely unaware of what was happening, and stiffly turned her head. Next to her stood a tall man with fair skin, a high nose, perfectly chiseled features, and sensual lips. Even with sunglasses on, his handsome and aristocratic aura was unmistakable. Both Daniel Sullivan and Amelia Hathaway were momentarily stunned by the sudden appearance of the handsome man. Amelia observed him closely. He was as tall as Daniel Sullivan, and under those expensive sunglasses, he was undoubtedly a striking man. He wore a simple white shirt, but she immediately recognized it as one of Daniel's favorite brands, and it was not cheap. On Anne Hathaway's wrist was a Vacheron Constantin watch, worth at least millions. Amelia asked the man, "May I ask who you are?" Although he had just called Anne, "my love," confirming their relationship, Amelia still probed. Before Anne could answer, the man's voice came first, "I'm her boyfriend, who are you?" Hearing his response, both Amelia and Daniel were taken aback. Was he Anne's new boyfriend? Amelia, not showing her emotions, clenched her fist. How could it be? She had heard and was still single and not well off, so how could she have such an outstanding and handsome boyfriend? Amelia maintained a gentle smile. So, he's your new boyfriend. Why didn't you tell us you had such a great boyfriend? Anne Hathaway snapped back to reality. Although she didn't know what the man beside her intended, it was clear he was helping her out. She replied impatiently, "Why should I tell you? New boyfriend?" The man naturally understood the implication of the word new. Did you have a boyfriend before? Anne Hathaway scoffed, "I was blind once." Daniel Sullivan's face darkened, his gaze fixed on Anne's face, which was not looking at him. "Anne, is this man really your boyfriend? Do you know him well? Don't associate with people who are no good." Hearing Daniel's advice, Anne laughed. "Mr. Sullivan, why don't you mind your own business? Who I date doesn't concern you. Whether I know him well or not, even those you know well can betray you. No good? That describes you perfectly. You've assessed yourself accurately." Daniel Sullivan's expression grew even more unpleasant. The man beside Anne Hathaway smirked slightly, not outwardly showing it. It seemed this woman was not a helpless little rabbit, but a prickly hedgehog. Amelia maintained her good-natured demeanor, "Daniel, and didn't mean it that way, don't take it to heart." Then, she looked at the man beside and invited, "We just came here to eat, are you here for the same? If you don't mind, shall we dine together?" The man seemed not to hear Amelia Hathaway's invitation, bowing his head to look at Anne Hathaway. "Darling, shall we go? Let's switch to another restaurant. I've heard this place is full of wealthy people with no taste." As soon as the man finished speaking, the expressions on Amelia Hathaway and Daniel Sullivan's faces suddenly turned sour. They always considered themselves part of the upper class, yet this man mocked them as unsophisticated rich folk. After speaking, the man wrapped his arm around Anne Hathaway and headed towards the curb. Although she knew the man was helping her, Anne Hathaway still felt uncomfortable being held by him. But thinking of Daniel Sullivan and Amelia Hathaway still watching her, Anne Hathaway didn't pull away. The man led her to a black Ferrari parked by the roadside. He pressed the car key, and the doors opened automatically like butterfly wings, looking very impressive. "Darling, get in." Anne Hathaway got into the car. The man politely closed the door and prepared to walk to the other side to drive. Suddenly, Amelia Hathaway, unwilling to give up, chased after them, maintaining a gentle smile. "Oh, the day after tomorrow is our engagement party. Are you free to attend?" The man glanced at the invitation Amelia Hathaway offered. He had no intention of taking it and replied indifferently, "Not free." With that, he turned and walked to the driver's seat, getting into the car. Amelia Hathaway's smile froze in place, her expression turning sour. Her hand tightened around the invitation, her eyes darkening. She couldn't believe Anne Hathaway had found such a good boyfriend. From his demeanor, attire, to the car he drove, it was clear this man was extraordinary. She had always thought of Anne as a nobody, so how could she attract such a man? Daniel Sullivan's voice came from behind, snapping Amelia Hathaway back to reality, her dark expression quickly replaced by her usual sweet and charming demeanor, so fast that even a master of facial expressions would be embarrassed in front of her. Daniel Sullivan's eyebrows were still slightly furrowed. "Did Anne ever tell you she had a new boyfriend?" Amelia Hathaway shook her head. Over the years, she and Daniel Sullivan had been abroad, and occasionally she heard news about Anne Hathaway from high school friends. After graduating, she didn't keep in touch much, but she still heard some news. It was said Anne had been kicked out of the Hathaway family, had to work to make a living, and life was tough. Knowing Anne wasn't doing well made her feel at ease. Anne Hathaway's tactics were impressive, managing to attract such a wealthy man. Because of Anne Hathaway's earlier words, Daniel Sullivan felt a complex emotion. It seemed she had found someone better than him. No wonder she could say such things without caring about him. When did she and that man start dating? Was that man? Seeing Daniel Sullivan lost in thought, knowing he was thinking about Anne Hathaway, Amelia Hathaway quickly stepped forward, shaking his hand to bring him back to reality. "Daniel, let's go in and eat. This restaurant usually requires a reservation a week in advance." However, their initial cheerful mood vanished because of the man's comment, "Everyone who dines at this restaurant is just uncultured rich people." Chapter 21, The Legendary Carter's Corporation in the Sports Car. The car sped along quickly, and Anne Hathaway suddenly snapped back to reality. She turned to the man beside her. "Thank you for earlier." "It's nothing, just a small matter." Anne Hathaway tentatively asked, "Why did you help me?" The man raised an eyebrow, his tone amused. "Let's just say I saw something unjust and decided to lend a hand." In truth, he wasn't sure why he suddenly felt the urge to help a stranger. He was in the area for work and had parked near the restaurant. When he returned to his car, he saw the three of them standing at the restaurant's entrance. Overhearing their conversation, he understood their relationship and found it intriguing. Anne Hathaway seemed fierce, while Amelia Hathaway appeared weak, as if she was being bullied. But he quickly noticed that the woman's weakness was just an act, she was the one being bullied. Hearing the woman pretend to care while actually mocking her, he suddenly stepped in to help. "Anyway, thank you very much," Anne Hathaway said gratefully. Thanks to this man's help, she felt vindicated against the couple. So what should I do now?" "Oh, I had originally reserved a spot at that restaurant, but now I can't go." "Didn't he just say that those who eat there are uncultured rich people?" The man turned to Anne Hathaway. "Then why don't you invite me to dinner?" "What?" Anne Hathaway was surprised. Driving a multi-million-dollar sports car, yet asking a poor person like her to treat him to a meal, didn't his conscience bother him? "I helped you, and you don't even want to treat me to a meal." The man looked disappointed, as if he had helped the wrong person. "It seemed like he volunteered to help me. But this man did help her, and she had always believed in repaying kindness. But I can't afford an expensive meal. How about I cook for you instead?" After thinking it over, cooking herself was the most economical option. Hearing this, the man raised an eyebrow, surprised that she could cook. Of course, that's fine. Just drop me off at the next intersection, she said. Huh? Didn't you say you would cook for me? Anne Hathaway was at a loss for words, she hadn't meant today. But since he had helped her, Anne Hathaway still gave him the address. As they drove through, this was the busiest area of City A, stopping at the intersection due to a red light, and Hathaway gazed out the window and saw a skyscraper not far away. She couldn't help but remark, that's the building of the Carter's group. Hearing this, the man's eyes, hidden behind sunglasses, also turned in that direction. A subtle, unreadable glint appeared in his eyes. Anne Hathaway glanced at the man helplessly. In all of City A, or rather the entire country, who doesn't know the Carter's group? It's one of the nation's leading corporations, a pride of City A, and everyone feels honored to work there. It's said the CEO of the Carter's group is only 30 years old and extremely handsome. Someone like that is truly born with a silver spoon. Anne Hathaway sighed, lamenting the unfairness of fate. Hearing her lengthy praise of the Carter's group and its CEO, the man smirked mockingly. Do you know the CEO of the Carter's group? Someone like that, how could I know him? It's just what I've heard online. Back when she was with the Hathaway family, the Carter's group seemed like a distant dream, let alone now. A few years ago, the Hathaway family was just a small business, although in recent years, relying on the Sullivan family, it had grown somewhat and gained a bit of reputation in City A. But compared to the Carters, the Hathaway family was just a small speck. Have you heard anything else? Thinking the man was merely curious, Anne Hathaway pondered for a moment, then her eyes lit up with curiosity. There's a rumor that the CEO of the Carter's group is gay, which is why he's still unmarried. What do you think? He's the only child of the Carters. If he's gay, how will the family line continue? All that money, will it just be donated someday? Anne Hathaway spoke, appearing as if she regretted that the money wasn't hers. However, there's also a rumor that he already has a son. If he's gay, it must have been through surrogacy. Money can indeed do anything. Yet, the man's attention seemed to drift from Anne Hathaway's words, a sardonic smile played on his lips. Anne Hathaway thought she heard him say something, but it was unclear. Realizing the red light had turned green and the cars ahead had moved on, she noticed the man hadn't started driving. She quickly nudged him, drive. The man drove Anne Hathaway to her doorstep. As he got out of the car with Anne Hathaway, his phone suddenly rang. He took out his phone, glanced at the incoming call, and his eyes darkened. When he looked up at Anne Hathaway, his expression softened, and he smiled gently. Sorry, I have some things to attend to today. I'll treat you to a meal next time. The man got into his car and drove off. Once inside, he answered the call. Are you back yet? Where's the second young master? Want to come for a drink? A teasing voice came from the other end. The man's face suddenly turned cold, and his voice was icy. Do you want to learn about the African branch? No, no. Big brother, I was wrong, okay. The person on the other end mentioned a bar, and the man hung up. After hanging up, he suddenly remembered that he hadn't asked for her name or left his phone number. Oh well, he thought, at least he knew her address. The image of Anne Hathaway, neither arrogant nor humble, flashed in his mind, and a mysterious smile appeared on his lips. On the way to the bar, he passed by the Carter Corporation building. His cold gaze seemed to pierce through his sunglasses. The only son of the Carter family, huh? At the Carter family's main residence. Young master, it's dinner time, the servant knocked on Benjamin Carter's door. Benjamin Carter went downstairs to the dining room. Just as he was about to enter, he paused upon hearing the conversation between Mr. Carter and Hope Bennett. Dad, did William meet that woman today? How did it go? You chose carefully, William should be pleased, right? Chapter 22, Stepmother only accepts Anne Hathaway. Hope Bennett's words hit Benjamin Carter like a bolt of lightning, leaving him frozen in place. Did this mean his father went to meet another woman? His father went on a blind date? How could his father go on a blind date without his approval? He wouldn't accept a strange woman as his stepmother. Angry, Benjamin Carter turned and ran back to his room. Mr. Carter sighed. Mr. Russell called me, saying his granddaughter came home crying. I don't know what William said to her. Then let's find someone else. By the way, why hasn't Benjamin come down for dinner? Because of yesterday's incident, Mr. Carter was worried and called for the servant. Surprised to see the young master not in the dining room, the servant widened her eyes. The young master just came downstairs. At this moment, another servant entered the dining room. I just saw the young master running back upstairs. Not knowing what was wrong with Benjamin Carter, Mr. Carter and Hope Bennett immediately went upstairs to his room. They tried to open the door but found it locked. Mr. Carter knocked. Benjamin, what's wrong? Why aren't you coming down for dinner? All they heard was a loud shout from inside, I'm not eating. Hope Bennett gently coaxed, Benjamin, you'll be hungry if you don't eat. I'm not eating. I'm not eating. I'm not eating. Mr. Carter and Hope Bennett looked at each other, unsure of how to handle Benjamin Carter's sudden hunger strike. Dad, why is Benjamin acting like this all of a sudden? Mr. Carter, with his elderly face, also looked confused. I don't know either. Let's call William and ask him to talk to Benjamin. Hope Bennett immediately called William Carter to inform him about Benjamin Carter's situation. After hanging up, they heard the phone ringing in the room, knowing it was William Carter calling Benjamin Carter. Benjamin Carter saw the word Dad flashing on the phone screen, pouted in annoyance but still answered the call. Why aren't you eating? Humph. He knew his grandparents had told his dad. Benjamin Carter didn't answer William Carter's question but instead asked, why are you going on blind dates? Surprised that he knew about the blind dates, William Carter realized why Benjamin was on a hunger strike. To find you a stepmother. Although today, it was all because Mr. Carter tricked him. He only agreed to consider it, not to actually go on a blind date. You said you wanted one before. I want Auntie to be my stepmother. The only stepmother he wanted was Auntie. He only wanted Auntie as his stepmother, no other women would do. Knowing Benjamin Carter would say this, William Carter's face darkened. No, there's no reason why. William Carter thought that even though the woman liked Benjamin Carter, not many women on their first marriage would want to marry a man who already had a child to become a stepmother. I don't care, I don't care. I just want Auntie. William Carter immediately hung up the phone. Hearing the busy tone from the other end, Benjamin Carter thought. He was sure he wasn't the biological son. Mr. Carter and Hope Bennett, waiting anxiously outside the door, received a call from William Carter and quickly picked up. William, how did your conversation with Benjamin go? Did you persuade him? Let him be hungry, once he's hungry, he'll eat. Mr. Carter and Hope Bennett were speechless. If they hadn't done a DNA test after finding Benjamin Carter, they would have doubted whether Benjamin was their biological child. What kind of father says that? Mr. Carter took the phone from Hope Bennett. William, how did your meeting with that girl go today? Were you not satisfied? She's the niece of Uncle Russell, considered a prestigious young lady. She studied abroad in America, has good education, and is very beautiful. Before Mr. Carter could finish, William Carter interrupted mercilessly, I have some work to do, I'll hang up now. What did William say? Hope Bennett asked anxiously. Mr. Carter shook his head. It seems last time he agreed just to buy time. This time we tricked him into going, next time he'll be more cautious, and it won't be easy to fool him again. Hanging up the phone, William Carter walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. The Carter Corporation's building was the tallest in City A, and his office was on the top floor. From here, one could view the entire city. When the lights came on, illuminating this bustling city, he wasn't in the mood to enjoy it. His dark eyes held a deep look. Amelia Hathaway and Daniel Sullivan had finished dinner. "Amelia, I'm going to the restroom for a moment." Daniel Sullivan stood up and went to the restroom, leaving Amelia Hathaway waiting. Amelia Hathaway waved for the server. "Do you need any help, ma'am?" Amelia Hathaway took out her phone. "Does this person work here?" The server looked at the photo on Amelia Hathaway's phone. The woman in the picture was Anne Hathaway. Though unsure why the guest was asking, the server nodded to confirm, not wanting to upset her. A cold glint appeared in Amelia Hathaway's eyes. She figured that Anne Hathaway must have hired a wealthy boyfriend, otherwise, why would she be wearing shabby clothes and working at this restaurant? With this thought, Amelia Hathaway felt calmer. Suddenly thinking of something, she smirked with a cold, cunning smile. Amelia Hathaway looked up and smiled at the server. "Could you do me a favor?" She then took a check for $10,000 out of her purse and handed it to the server.